Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. So what we're going to be speaking about today is Venus's transit or journey through the sign of Capricorn. So I did actually want to make this video a couple days after that initial ingress into Capricorn. So Venus is already in the sign of Capricorn as of November 5th of 2021. And the reason why I wanted to do that was because I believe that a lot of you, especially those who are more sensitive or in tune with vibrations or energies, you might have already received some very powerful messages about what this particular transit is going to be bringing. So even in my own personal life, based on those first few days of Venus ingress into the sign of Capricorn, I already have a very good picture of what this transit is going to be about for me personally. So I did want to do that a couple days after the ingress. So maybe, paying attention to what's been going on the past few days, as that will be telling part of the story of Venus's transit through your chart. So Venus will be in the sign of Capricorn for a considerable amount of time. She's moved into Capricorn again, November 5th of 2021, and she will remain there until March 5th of 2022. So she's going to be in the sign of Capricorn for 120 days, so approximately 4 months. So that's quite a bit of time. So of course that means that we have a retrograde going on. So Venus's retrograde, this will be from December 19th of 2021 until January 29th of 2022. So she's going to be retrograde for 41 days during this time period, and she will station at 26 degrees of Capricorn, and then she will retrograde back to 11 degrees of Capricorn. So paying special attention also, if you have planets around these degrees in Capricorn, or specifically in the Cardinal Signs, this is a very powerful activation of this energy. But for everybody collectively, Venus will be spending a considerable amount of time in one of your houses. So we're going to take a look at that, and then we're going to also, towards the end of the video, take a look at the 12 signs individually and see what that is bringing, which houses are connected, and how that is part of the story as well. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to do that was because during Venus's transit through the sign of Capricorn, Venus will also be going into the underworld 3 times. So what I mean by that is Venus will be making a direct connection with the planet Pluto 3 times during this transit. So the dates for those exact conjunctions are December 11th of 2021, December 25th of 2021, and then March 3rd of 2022. So we're also going to take a look at what areas of life Venus represents in your chart, as those areas can also be going through these very profound types of transformations. So that's what we're going to be focusing on in this video today. And then also, before I do a video or before I do a reading, I always try to tune in or tap into the energy that I'm working with or taking a look at. So actually, when I was thinking about this transit of Venus through Capricorn, making these connections with Pluto, the image that came to mind is actually the diamond. So that's why I've chosen it as my background today. And the reason is that, Capricorn, this is a sign that's associated with the mountaintop or the peak. And so it also has this connection with rocks and with stones. And this is a sign that's ruled by Saturn, which, yes, it is a planet of pressure, restrictions, delays, blockages, boundaries, all of those. But Saturn also loves commitment. The sign Capricorn loves commitment, and this is a very hardworking, very mature, very responsible type of sign. And of course, those things are definitely needed within relationships. So that becomes good. And then Venus making this connection with Pluto. Also interesting, Venus is a planet that is connected with jewels or gemstones or beautiful things, with things of value as well, or things that are worth money, those types of things. So, and then Pluto is the darkness. Pluto is those things that are hidden and buried and things like that. So how are diamonds formed? Diamonds are formed under great pressure, and they are formed in darkness beneath the earth as well. So I thought that was a really beautiful symbology, and I did just want to offer that because in a way for me, this transit kind of represents a diamond being formed or a diamond being created in a certain area of life for you. So even with, the intensity around the Pluto, Venus conjunctions that are going to be happening and all those things, I do believe something really beautiful can be born at this time and something that could be long lasting. So what is a diamond? It's indestructible, it's of high value, it lasts forever. And the only thing that can cut a diamond is another diamond. These types of things. So I did just want to offer that, as that is what I kind of picked up on when tapping into this energy. So again, I do feel that this transit is kind of like, again, this diamond being created through pressure and through that process. Okay, so let's move on and let's talk about Venus in the sign of Capricorn. So Venus's transit and retrograde through the sign of Capricorn will bring up some of these kind of Capricornian themes and developments collectively for us. So Capricorn, this is a very serious sign. Very mature sign, very responsible sign, and it is a sign that requires a high level of commitment as well. So what is Venus? Venus is love, it's relationships, it's relating to others, it's balance, harmony, it's cooperation, self-worth, self-esteem, what we value, things of value. All these things are seen through the energy of Venus. So that means that we may be required in this time period to take a more committed approach to these things, to become more serious about these things, to become more business minded about these things. And it can also be talking about figuring out how to reach a peak of achievement with any of those Venusian things as well. Now, Capricorn is also a sign of status. So this, especially with the retrograde here, this can definitely be a transit that brings some form of change to your relationship status or reconsideration going on with that retrograde energy being there as well, of, relationships or roles in relationships, boundaries within relationships, authority within relationships. Those can all be very important themes of this transit for anyone collectively. Now, it can also talk about becoming much more serious or getting much more committed with things connected to your finances. So that could be coming in. So again, Capricorn is like this mountain. So kind of thinking, this is where I am. This is where I need to be. What is the practical approach, the step-by-step approach to be able to achieve those things? Because Capricorn is also a sign of achievement as well. Also, this can talk about, especially with that retrograde, rebudgeting finances or reworking finances, reworking partnerships, contracts, or agreements within those relationships, or recreating more structure with those, building a more solid foundation. But that reflection period is something that can be needed to kind of go a little bit deeper with those things, to be able to know the next steps that need to be taken. So it can be a time of when everybody's working towards restabilizing their finances, which with what is going on collectively, that makes perfect sense as well. But because it's retrograde, it can talk about building something that requires a lot of hard work, a lot of hard effort, and you might even need to come at that thing with repetition. Capricorn, the planet Saturn, is the planet that loves repetition as well. But working very hard to manifest something material, something tangible, something that's long lasting, something that provides you with stability as well. And you can even take a bit more of a conventional or traditional type of approach to these things, whether that's style, whether that's your relationships, whether that's how you make money, how you spend, save, invest, and earn, are also seen through Venus, how you relate to others and things like that, how you cooperate with others. So those can all be important themes that are coming up as well. Or considering the long-term results of those things connected with Venus. So, Venus is what brings us pleasure. Are there some things in your life that bring you pleasure that might be blockers of success? Because Venus being retrograde in a sign that, again, is Saturn ruled. Saturn rules those restrictions, blockages, boundaries, and delays and things like that. And Saturn likes to test us as well. And so, but the retrograde energy can also talk about releasing. So releasing any kind of, boundaries or self imposed even types of boundaries, or boundaries that you have because of, your level of self-worth or self-esteem or something like that, or the pressure that you receive in a relationship. Maybe, this is the time period where you start to reconsider those things, or think of the long-term results of the or effects of those. So even say, with Venus being the planet of pleasure, maybe there's something you really enjoy doing. Maybe it's like, just enjoying spending time on your phone, or maybe you enjoy like going out and going to parties and things like that, but it somehow, gets in the way of you achieving something. It gets in the way of you reaching that peak or that high achievement. So maybe you reevaluate those things, become much more disciplined within this time period, become much more serious about these things. And, with that Pluto energy, there can be some kind of something that you're eliminating there as well. So that can definitely come in. Also, Venus being the planet of love and relationships, being in the sign of commitment and things like that, thinking of the long-term effects of a relationship. So for example, maybe you're reconsidering a relationship because maybe your goals are not in alignment. So, for example, say you've been in this long-term relationship, maybe let's say like an 8-year relationship or something like that, and you're at the point where you want this higher level of commitment. I want to get married, I want to have kids, I want to do all these things, and you realize your partner's goals are not in alignment with your goals. So it causes you to kind of reconsider that relationship and what you want in the long term as well. So, that type of energy can also be happening. Also, considering what things are realistic in the long run in terms of earning potential, relationships, those types of things. Or, if you can also be putting a lot of hard work and a lot of hard effort into making those things succeed. But maybe first, Venus contacts Pluto and some kind of issue comes up. But Venus with Pluto, that can also be an amazing time for therapy and for introspection and doing that deep diving and deep digging to resolve some of those issues as well. So maybe during that time period, you have some kind of something go on within your relationship and you guys decide together, okay, well, we're going to go to therapy. We're going to go back to the basics and we're going to kind of refigure out why we fell in love with each other. And if, again, our goals are in alignment and things like that as well. Okay, so, but then with the retrograde energy, say, for example, with relationships, wanting more commitment within a relationship. So maybe, one thing that could kind of happen is starting to put on pressure on your partner for those things that you want, those goals that you want and things like that. And then maybe that does bring about an engagement. But if that's during the retrograde time period, or you're pressuring someone for like this high, like going to the next level in your relationship, so moving in or something like that, if you do those things during the retrograde period, there's a good chance that those things might not work out once Venus starts to move direct again and things like that again, or it can fall apart a little bit later on as well. So being aware of that. And, an element of valuing or appreciating things from the past does come into play here, whether that's objects, things that are ancient or things from history. You can start to kind of value those or find interest or pleasure in those as well. Or, things that are time tested as well. That is the energy of Saturn and Capricorn. So you could be revisiting things from the past here. So, of course, Venus retrograde can bring back relationships in some way. Maybe even in the sign of Capricorn, this can be revisiting a relationship with an older person, a more mature person, a more experienced person, an authority figure, a boss figure within your life as well. It can even talk about returning to a certain kind of work that you have done previously in the past. That can definitely come up. And, even on more of a collective level, the value that we place, not just in, those material things or with money, with relationships, but collectively we can even start to kind of question our values connected to government and things like that as well, because Capricorn is associated with those things. So, when a planet goes retrograde, that is the time period when it is closer to the Earth. It appears to be moving backwards in the sky. And so retrogrades are also associated with all of those rewords. So, you know, planet and what it represents kind of slows down, and we get that chance to internalize those things connected with those planets, or do a lot of reflection, personal reflection with those as well, because we have this extended period of time to do so. So this can be a time also of reflection and reevaluation with, you know, money, love, relationships, all of those things. That those things can definitely go through huge revision or huge reevaluation. Also, you know, restructuring can be going on with any of those Venusian things, reconsideration with any of those Venusian things as well, whether this is revising kind of how you present yourself to the world, or what your style is, or again, how you interact with people, or how you do relationships, how you know, it's also self-worth and self-esteem, maybe how well you value yourself and things like that as well. This is also an energy that, you know, can talk about redesigning something, revising something, revisiting something, reconnecting with something is a huge one, with Venus being retrograde. So what are you reconnecting with? In some way, of course, that will be related to Venus, but this reconnection is kind of happening. So something from the past being brought up to be reconnected with or resolved as well. And of course, retrograde energies can cause us to require us to put in a lot more effort and a lot more work. We can be required to rework and revise any of those things connected with Venus as well. Okay, so, or reinventing, reinvesting in something, you know, these are all connected with Venus. And Venus, this is also a very feminine energy. This, you know, again, is self-worth, is self-esteem. So really amazing time period for, you know, rethinking boundaries within your relationships. Also for reconsidering, you know, how self-worth and self-esteem impacts the way that you connect with others, or the way that you connect with the world, and things like that as well. Okay, but this is also a sign of commitment. So again, within relationships, reconsidering commitment within those, whether that's for positive or negative. Again, this can be associated with relationship status change, which can even mean, you know, going back to being single, or it can mean an elevation of your status or relationship in some way, especially through that hard work and perseverance as well. Okay, so, and you know, Venus is a planet of influence and attraction and things like that. And Saturn, or sorry, Capricorn is a sign associated with the social climb as well. So it can even indicate maybe, you know, entering into relationships that somehow help you up the social ladder in some way. Those types of things can also be happening. Becoming more determined or hardworking within relationships, or with your finances as well. Or doing, you know, those things kind of step by step, and really reflecting and taking a look at those things, because the retrograde energy, it will slow things down anyway for that time of reflection and things like that. Then you put this in a Saturn ruled sign, which already loves repetition, which already slows things down. So quite powerful that way. Okay, so just to kind of summarize that, Venus retrograde in the sign of Capricorn, you know, rethinking your finances, how you spend, save, invest, and earn, reevaluating the terms of agreement within an existing relationship or within an existing partnership, reinvesting in something that might even be something old or something ancient, something from the past as well. Or even like antiques and things like that. You know, it's a sign that likes, you know, those old things or time-tested things, things that have lasted for a very long time as well. Restructuring relationships, whether that's in your business, your organization, your institution. So it can even be kind of like if it's within your company or something like that, that can be a time when you're reconsidering the value of the people that are involved in this organization or institution, and downsizing, or making pay cuts or something like that, or even like receiving promotions or something for those that put in that hard effort and put in that hard work as well. So there can be a big reevaluation with those things. It can talk about going back to an old career, old profession, or reconnecting with some of those authority figures and things like that from the past as well. In terms of relationships, again, you know, it can talk about a huge, you know, shift in the way that you're approaching those, and figuring out if those things are good in the long term, in the long run. as well, defining boundaries within your relationships. And with this Pluto influence, that might even be a source of a power struggle or something like that as well. We'll talk about Pluto a little bit later on when we get to the individual signs. Or you can become more business-minded with your approach to relationships or to money, you know, all of those things. So it is quite good, I think, this transit. Personally, I'm pretty excited for it. There's definitely some things that I've named that I need more of. So yeah, so all of those things can come with this energy in general. But let's take a look now at this energy of Venus making this connection with Pluto. Okay, and then finally, let's take a look at the Venus and Pluto conjunction, which again will be happening 3 times. The first transit of Venus to Pluto will be December 11th of 2021. The second transit, the retrograde transit, will be Christmas Day, December 25th, 2021. And then the third and final transit, when Venus is in its direct motion, will be March 3rd of 2022. So we've talked a lot about Venus and what Venus represents. So, you know, planet of love, of relationships, of balance, of harmony, of cooperation, of self-worth, of self-esteem, of our values, those things we find valuable, you know, our resources and possessions, things that we enjoy, what we derive pleasure from, these are all seen through Venus. So in a conjunction with Pluto, of course, Pluto is a planet that is quite extreme. So it has this very kind of harsh and intense shadow side, and it has this really amazing light, beautiful side as well. However, Pluto transits are often felt in quite a difficult type of way, as this is the planet of death, rebirth, crisis, transformation, and all of those things as human beings often are, you know, felt in a bit of a difficult way, especially initially. But it doesn't mean we can't have good results with those things. It's just that in terms of those things that Venus represents, we can encounter some form of initial crisis at the beginning. So it's almost like the first pass of Venus can bring some form of crisis. The retrograde period can be about reflection of that, or the events that kind of happen there. And these can be positive or negative. And then the third pass of Venus to Pluto indicates this resolve that's going on, or, you know, the final product of, you know, that situation. So with Pluto, before we even begin to talk about this transit, I want to talk a little bit about Pluto, as again, it's a bit of an intense energy, and it has this extreme shadow side and this extreme light side as well. So Pluto on the shadow side, and these shadow qualities, you know, this is even the same. I mean, now we're getting psychological because we're talking about Pluto, but even our own shadow side, each of those shadow qualities has its own gift or blessing associated with it, even though we've kind of, you know, disowned those qualities in some way or hid them in some way. They each come with their own, you know, gift or ability. So even, you know, when we're talking about Pluto, yes, it's a planet, let's say, of obsession, which, you know, has a bit of a negative connotation. But you can also be an obsessive, you know, learner, someone who has the ability to obsessively focus on something, which can actually bring that into manifestation, which Pluto is also this energy of creation. So it can work one of two ways. So keeping that in mind when we're going over each of these qualities. So Pluto, you know, and this will be influencing all those things connected to Venus that we had already spoken about. So it is a planet that is quite obsessive on its shadow side. It's talking about, you know, deep, dark desires and animal instincts as well. It's a planet of manipulation and secrets and hidden, buried things. It's all those taboo things as well. So those can come in, and Pluto does have quite a destructive influence. So, you know, it's the energy of the phoenix rising, you know, being broken down to that ash before being able to rise up. And of course, we've seen with the Saturn Pluto conjunction just how powerful that can be. Of course, Saturn, though, is things that last for a very long time. So Pluto can have this destructive type of influence. It carries a lot of intensity with it as well. It is a planet of fear, of power, of control. You know, again, that manipulation, things like that. Pluto is connected with trauma or darker experiences that we can encounter. And it is on its extreme shadow side, it could be quite dangerous or quite underworldly and things like that as well. Um, or again, it can be an initiator for some form of crisis. So with Venus, that can be a financial crisis, or that can be a crisis within relationships, or a crisis on an internal level with, things connected to self-worth and self-esteem that need to be transformed, or, they need to, research needs to be done around those things to get this higher perspective of those things. So that can all come in. And it's not just financial crisis. This can also be a huge, like earning money through some kind of crisis situation. So again, there's a shadow and light even in all of the seemingly shadow qualities. Then on its higher vibration, this is a planet of transformation. So again, a total transformation, Venus is beauty. It could be very good for people in those types of industries as well, or, someone who has the ability to manipulate finances and things like that in a positive way, that can be good. It's also a planet of, sex and intimacy. Again, that can go one of two ways, depending on the experience. This is a planet of the occult, of magic, of alchemy, of creation as well, of renewal. It's also a financial planet, and it's very, very strategic. So again, if it's Venus in Capricorn is trying to achieve something, maybe there's some form of crisis that happens that causes you to kind of rethink your strategy and totally transform your approach to any of those things. So it is quite powerful that way. Pluto is also a planet of great influence. It has a very magnetic type of attraction. It's very healing. It's very surgical. It's a planet of renewal and regeneration as well. So those things can definitely be positive in some way. It's a rebirth process though. So yes, there's this death, and I'm talking more in a metaphorical type of sense. So something, can die, but the focus should always be on the renewal of that energy. So maybe you encounter, let's say in Capricorn, this boss type of figure, and maybe there's some kind of crisis, or he tries to take your power away in some way, and that causes you to kind of, retreat, and that breaks down your self-worth, and it breaks down your self-esteem, and then you find that inner empowerment, and then you reach this high peak of personal power through having gone through that seemingly negative experience. So it can be that type of energy also. And Pluto's also a planet of deep research, deep investigation. So, around love and relationships, attracting kind of people like that can happen, or doing that within your own relationships. But is that, breaking into your spouse's, one of their accounts or something? Or is it going to therapy with a partner and really figuring out those things together, doing deep research and investigation through a cooperative type of effort? That's another way that it can manifest. And this is also a planet that is talking about elimination. So again, if you're trying to eliminate some kind of thing that you previously found pleasurable, that's somehow a blocker of success or something like that for you in some way, what an amazing time to kind of release those things and go deep of, like, say, you have a blockage around success or something like that. And our self-worth and self-esteem is connected to how much money we make, by the way. So say you have this pattern of self-sabotage or something right before you achieve something, you kind of subconsciously destroy that because it's not in alignment with what you believe about yourself or something. This could be a great time for, like, oh my God, this crisis happened, and like, did that come from me, or where my beliefs are, where my values are, how much value I place in myself or something like that. And so you go really, really deep into like this rabbit hole, figuring out where did that come from? Where's the foundation of this? Where's the root cause of this? And totally transforming that. So that renewal energy. So it can be quite powerful for those types of things. The Venus Pluto conjunction, what it really reminds me of is like a relationship therapist. So some people who actually, I'll name some people who embody these energies, but Venus Pluto conjunction reminds me of a relationship therapist. So Dr. Phil actually has this. It reminds me of a financial tycoon in some ways. So JP Morgan has this. These are people who personify or embody that type of energy. It can also be someone who's a very dramatic and powerful type of entertainer or something like that. So Julia Roberts has that. It's an aspect, I believe, of female empowerment as well. And it's also very like, it can be quite a sexual, desirous type of energy. It almost reminds me of like a mistress or like a dominatrix type of thing. Um, or someone who could be like a master illusionist. So Jeffree Star has this, Beyonce has this, again, that wicked, dramatic, powerful entertainer, or master illusionist in some way. So Jeffree Star, you know, he's the one that transforms himself with makeup and things like that, very Venus Pluto. Also, you know, it's an aspect that's connected with almost like dark creativity. So Edgar Allan Poe has that, or, you know, channeling pain into creativity in some way, which, you know, Venus is also very creative. So it can even be, you know, in the sign of Capricorn, it can be going back to old things that you used to create or find pleasure in, those types of things, or finding beauty out of darkness. You know, that's very Pluto, Venus. Again, it's also very desirous energy, very attractive energy, and Pluto's the transformer of things. So, you know, what I've noticed with, you know, Pluto transits, whenever I see I have a Pluto transit coming up or something like that, or I have a client that has a powerful Pluto activation within a soul return chart or something like that, or through transit, I always recommend, you know, leaning into that transformation, creating it as consciously as possible. And I do believe that's the best way to navigate Pluto transits, and things like that as well, to lean into those things, the best that you can. So, you know, Venus's first transit to Pluto, again, something might appear during that time period, or, you know, a crisis of some kind can be initiated in that time period. Venus's retrograde will give us a deeper chance, or a chance to look at that thing on a much, much deeper level. And then, of course, Venus's third pass to Pluto will talk about the resolve, or completion of these things. So Venus and Pluto making contact, you know, it can show total transformation of values, total transformation of relationships and your approach to them. In extreme cases, this can talk about, you know, divorce or power struggles, hidden things appearing within relationships, or hidden actions happening within relationships. But really an important theme of this is taking your power back, from any of those people that have taken your power away through those types of situations. Because Pluto, um, you know, it can talk about personal empowerment and personal power and things like that, but it can also talk about the abuse of power. So that does come in. This can be a great time for, you know, therapy, doing any of that internal, personal development type of work. And this can definitely be a huge transformation of values, of finances, you know, and that can go on either end of the spectrum that we've mentioned, or a big transformation of what it is that you enjoy, what brings you pleasure, those types of things. I mean, if you're in sex related industries as well, this can be quite a great type of energy. The way you express yourself creatively can be going through a big transformation as well. Your sense of beauty or style or aesthetics can go through a powerful transformation. Any of those, or you know, material or joint assets within relationships, what's mine and what's yours, or my values, your values. Again, there can be some form of power struggle connected with those things, but there's a lot of powerful potential with this conjunction as well. But we'll speak about that when we get into the 12 signs, because we're going to take a look at what houses Venus is ruling for you as well, to know how to best navigate that. So let's take a look now at the 12 signs and see the areas of life that will be influenced for each sign. You can check from your sun, moon, or rising. However, I do recommend watching the entire beginning of this video and applying it to these houses as well. You'll get a much more detailed description that way. So we're going to start with Aries rising, and especially for you guys watching the beginning of the video, it's almost sort of tailored to you guys in a way, or a bit of an extended read, because you guys have the natural houses that the signs rule in their natural position. So Venus naturally rules your second house and your seventh house. And Capricorn naturally rules your 10th house. So a lot of things we've spoken about will kind of be double important for you guys. So for Aries rising though, First, let's talk about the Pluto and Venus connection that's going on. So this is your second house lord conjuncting Pluto, going retrograde over Pluto, and then moving forward over Pluto again. So this indicates that there can be very powerful transformations going on in regards to this house as well. So this is a house of how you spend, save, invest, and earn money. And this is all happening in your 10th house of career. So the house where it's happening is kind of where all the action is happening. But there is still this connection to your second house as well. So this can show, transforming your relationship with money can definitely be one of the manifestations for some of you. Some of you guys might have very powerful transformations connected to what it is that you value, even your value within a certain company, corporation, or career, or in an authority type of position, or even you can encounter power struggles, control issues within relationships or with those types of figures as well, in a very powerful way. Also, this is an amazing time for you guys to be releasing any kind of, because the second house has something to do with our intake of things, which also includes intake of, things specifically through our mouth. So eating habits or smoking or whatever it is, any of those things. So if you're looking to eliminate or release any of those habits connected there, or eating habits, something like that, amazing time for those. So maybe say you have a toxic habit or something that you feel is really blocking your success, or maybe it would just be a really high achievement for you to be able to release that. Amazing time period for thinking about those things and taking action towards those things. So getting to the bottom of any problems or insecurities or unhealthy habits, things connected to self-worth and self-esteem. And in terms of money, this can talk about, even say again, if you're in a certain company or something like that, or maybe you have a power struggle with the boss because they're undermining your value in some way, or maybe if you feel it's time to ask for a promotion or something like that, because of the value that you bring to the company. So especially with this Pluto contact, it can even indicate some kind of crisis or something like that. So it can even show maybe you work in this sort of organization or whatever, and they're going through this process of restructuring, their finances. Maybe they're making like pay cuts or something like that, or maybe they are just, kind of doing like a whole restructuring of the business. And then, this kind of forms a crisis for you because maybe something there is not in alignment with your values. So it can be almost like, okay, taking a step back, like, is this something that I want to represent myself through? These things are changing. It's no longer in alignment with my values, or it's something that I no longer enjoy. So it can talk about considering a job change or something like that, or asking for a pay raise or something like that, reconsidering your own value within career as well, or trying to, find, like, do what you love kind of energy um, can be going on. So there can also be, in terms of possessions and resources indicated by the second house, a big transformation going on with those. You can even encounter power struggles or control issues with those in some cases, for some of you. Then you guys have the seventh house lord making this 3-time connection with Pluto. And so actually, the seventh house is a house of visibility. It's dealing with the public, and this has something to do with the fact that this is the 10th house from the 10th house. So it's talking about visibility within career. So actually, I've seen in a lot of cases a very strong 7th house activation when people become famous or they get recognized within their career. So, and again, it can indicate a powerful shift in status or reputation. That can be in a positive way or a negative way. We're talking about Pluto. So it can talk about maybe a sex scandal becoming public or something, or this can talk about, gaining a lot of powerful influence in the kind of work that you're doing or in the career that you're doing, that helps you gain visibility as well. This can also talk about renegotiating terms of a contract or agreement with another, and that can be in both business or personal types of relationships. This can even just indicate that your partner can be going through a very powerful and profound transformation of their own as well. or relationships can somehow have an influence or impact on your status or reputation as well. You can even meet very transformative people. So you can meet a very transformative type of authority figure, or again, in the more shadow ways it can manifest is encountering this very public power struggle with a boss or something like that. So those are just a few things to describe the energy. And then Venus spending all this time in your 10th house. You know, this can talk about a huge reevaluation going around, your legacy or the kind of work that you do. Again, reconsidering, is this something that I enjoy doing? Is this something that's in alignment with my values? Am I making enough money? And becoming more practical, committed, serious, or responsible with things connected to finances and relationships, especially in the realm of career as well. This can also indicate an area of life where you might need to take your power back from something or someone. And with the retrograde energy, it can also be where you're reconnecting with someone or something. So maybe you go back to something that you used to enjoy doing for work. Maybe you revisit, older relationships with people that you used to work with or something like that, and they help or benefit you in some way, because Venus is still a benefic planet, spending a lot of time in your 10th house as well. Also putting in a lot of hard effort, a lot of hard work, a lot of, commitment and things like that. Despite that Plutonic energy, which actually might be hugely positive as well. But putting, that effort in, the retrograde energy does slow things down. It can be a little bit frustrating, cause some form of delay. Maybe, Venus is a planet of design and things like that. So maybe you have to create something for work, and maybe with that Pluto influence, maybe your boss kind of smashes it or something, and you have to go back and redesign and rework and things like that. But then you end up with this much more beautiful, much more positive result or something like that. So that can also be something that goes on with this energy. Okay, so this is also where you can experience some kind of renewal. So the way that you make money, renewal within relationships or within career, those are all possible for you guys. And this is, again, where this diamond can be created through hard work, through perseverance, through a lot of pressure, through, navigating powerful transformations here the best that you can. And also by overcoming fears and challenges in this area of life. This is where you can have something that ends up being very long lasting, very beautiful, and can last for a very long time, be very strong. Okay, so let's take a look at Taurus rising. Okay, so for Taurus rising, of course, Venus rules, you guys. So this is your first house lord and your sixth house lord transiting the ninth house and going retrograde in the ninth house and making these conjunctions with Pluto in the ninth house. So these are the areas of life where you can experience these very profound types of transformation. Also, what's going through a huge process of revision as well. But of course, those experiences will be filtered through the ninth house experience. So especially with your first house lord, spending 4 months in the ninth house, which is actually, one of the houses of luck and opportunity. It's forming a trine aspect to your ascendant, especially between 25 and 11 degrees. It will go retrograde over those degrees. So it will contact those degrees 3 times. So, it's definitely that energy of Jupiter that comes with that trine aspect. You can be receiving opportunities through these things. So even with that Pluto conjunction, maybe it's an opportunity that comes to you through some form of crisis in some way, which we'll speak about. But because this is your ruling planet, this also means that you are very actively involved somehow with the affairs of the ninth house. So what is the ninth house? The ninth house, this is the house of our vision for the future. It's anything that expands our mind or our awareness in some way, or expands our horizons in some way. So that's why this house is connected with foreign travel, with higher education, higher knowledge, spirituality. It's the house of the teacher, preacher, mentor, guru, guide, coach, advisor. And it is one of the houses of father and father figures as well. So, very actively involved with these types of things. The ninth house is also connected to, publishing of content and things like that. It's also has a connection to legal matters. It's a house of very high morale as well. So very actively involved with things connected with this house. But then Venus is also going retrograde. And so, and sorry, I forgot, your sixth house lord is also transiting the ninth house. And so somehow your daily life is also connected to this ninth house energy for a long period of time, which is interesting. So this can talk about a huge change in lifestyle, for sure, a huge revision of, you know, those things through higher principles or higher knowledge. So the sixth house, this is the house of health, of diet, nutrition, exercise, lifestyle. It's what you do on a regular basis. It's a house of, you know, coworkers or employees if you have them. It's a house of service as well. And so with this transit, spending a lot of time in your ninth house, you might gain actually some kind of higher knowledge or higher understanding as well about some kind of problem, because the sixth house is all about fixing problems as well. So in a general sense, the sixth house is kind of the house of the victim or the savior. So it does represent conflict and imbalance types of, you know, situations. It represents enemies. It represents conflicts, you know, litigation. In terms of people, it's those that have been victimized, the disenfranchised, those less fortunate in some way, house of pets and animals and things like that as well. I mean, so one manifestation could be like this, you get this exotic pet and then you rethink that decision or something weird like that. But you know, it can also talk about learning something or gaining higher knowledge and wisdom about something connected to this house. And so the sixth house is a house of fixing and correcting problems as well, natural house of Virgo. So you can gain some kind of higher understanding or higher knowledge or higher wisdom with something connected to this area of life. So it can't even just be resolving a problem, or you can receive some kind of luck or benefit from, you know, coworker. Maybe they change your perspective and help you see things in a different way, or maybe someone who's, you know, suffering or less fortunate or something like that, you know, helps you find some form of, you know, higher meaning through one of those types of experiences. Or if you have, you know, some kind of you know, health problem or something like that, maybe you get very serious and very, very committed. That's Venus in the sign of Capricorn. And disciplined about, you know, again, fixing and correcting those problems, creating a very structured, regimented daily routine in some way, or, you know, doing something on a regular basis that helps you reach that high level of achievement in some area of life. And then with the first house lord here as well, and especially with those contacts to Pluto, let's speak about that. So, you know, this can indicate a very powerful transformation. Being your sixth house lord as well, sometimes that can even talk about encountering a health crisis of some kind that causes you to totally, you know, reflect and reevaluate, you know, whatever it is that you're putting into your body or something like that, or how well you're taking care of your body, those types of things. This can even talk about a lifestyle transformation. So again, getting rid of any kind of addiction or unhealthy habits and things like that. Great transit for those types of things. It can also talk about, you know, it can even talk about getting a tattoo. Sixth house is connected sort of with that. And that can also talk about some kind of transformation of the physical appearance, or a big transformation, you know, of your personality and your identity. This is in the house of beliefs and the belief system. So any limiting or negative beliefs or limitations that you have, you can really kind of deep dive into those and resolve them to fix and correct, you know, these problems and things like that. In a shadow way, it can give power struggles within, you know, the work environment or something like that initially, until those things are resolved through that retrograde period, or those things are reflected upon, and those corrections are made or something like that. So it can indicate, again, initially some kind of crisis, and then Venus goes retrograde back over Pluto. And then when it finally moves back over Pluto for the third time, I can talk about some kind of resolve that you come through that deep research or deep investigation or reflection, or, you know, changing of those habits, rituals and routines in some way. So that's another thing that can happen. Also, Venus in the ninth house going retrograde, that can be what or who you're reconnecting with. So this can show, you know, father figures or teachers, mentors, gurus, even old belief systems and things like that can come back up from the past in some way to be revisited. So that can come in. And this is also where a powerful process of reconsideration can be going on. So maybe that's in your field of study. Maybe that's with, a trip that you were supposed to go on, or maybe that's talking about, wanting to revisit somewhere that you've already been that you really enjoyed, those types of things. This is also Venus in the ninth house. That can be learning about, the law of attraction and those higher, more, spiritual things of how to, gain and attract money, and those types of things can also come in. This is also where you can revisit something that you love. So again, going back to some, plays that you loved or something like that, or this is an area of life where you can be reinvesting in something. So reinvesting in your vision, reinvesting in your education in some way. Those can also come in, or reinvesting, say you had something that you really, really wanted to publish. You wanted to publish your creative works in some way, and you just never got around to doing that. So then with this transit, again, this is where this diamond can be formed. So maybe you really get serious and committed about that, and you have this step-by-step plan where you're going to map it all out, and you're going to publish your book, you're going to do those things. So you create this very structured plan, and maybe that, you have to kind of redesign some things, or rework some things, and encounter a little bit of delays and things like that. But when that energy starts to move forward, you have this really beautiful, solid, amazing thing that can give long-lasting results as well. So the area of life where this diamond is being formed is in the house of your belief system, of inspiration, and those types of things. So it becomes quite good, but it's also where you're going to be more committed. This is the planet that rules you, the actions that you take and things like that. And also, again, daily life, daily routine. So you can become, in general, more committed, more responsible, more mature, creating boundaries as well within your own personal life. And since it's your ascendant lord, and your sixth house lord, this can be in daily life, or with daily relationships, or just, with you as a person. This is my boundary. Like, that's what it is. And this is also where you could be becoming some form of fears or delays or obstacles. So, facing fears of the ninth house, that's, the house of God, and it's the house of, higher power and things like that. Or maybe it's a fear of travel or something, and you overcome that, or, those types of things. Or again, getting to the bottom of deep rooted beliefs, and seeing what influence they're having over your life. And with the energy of Pluto, that 3 times conjunction that we spoke about in the beginning of the video, which, by the way, I'm just going to let every sign know I do recommend watching the beginning of the video to get a more detailed perspective, apply all of that to the areas of life that I'm speaking about. But these areas of life can also go through a very powerful transformation. It can indicate, in a shadow way, again, having some form of power struggles, control issues, with who or what is represented by this house as well. And it might be an area of life where you might need to take your power back in some way. So, this being one of the houses of father, maybe, it can indicate having a lot of really kind of stuck beliefs maybe that came from the father, and then this kind of crisis happens, and then you do this reflection, you're like, are these my beliefs, or were these passed on to me, and can I remove those, or something like that can be happening, so you can take your power back and reclaim your own belief system in some way. This can indicate power struggles over belief system in extreme cases, but again, it's where you can regenerate, renew, or experience a rebirth as well. So this can be a rebirth of purpose, or a rebirth of, your path in life, or something like that, a rebirth of your, belief system in some way, or your perspective, or a rebirth in the realm of, education and things like that. It can even indicate, maybe, especially with the sixth house lord, that is one of the houses of litigation as well. Ninth house is a legal house. Sometimes it can talk about power struggles with legal battles, things like that. Maybe something, gets delayed there. Maybe there's some plutonic power struggle type of, themes around that. And it gets dragged out a little bit before it moves, forward. Maybe you have to revisit, again, some of those terms of agreement and things like that with another person. Okay, so let's move on to Gemini. Okay, so for Gemini rising, as if the Venus Pluto conjunction was not intense enough, definitely, for every sign I'm going to mention this, go back and watch the beginning of the video, apply all of that to the houses that are being activated in your chart. But you guys have Venus moving through the eighth house, spending a considerable amount of time in your eighth house, which is the natural house of Pluto, the natural house of Scorpio. So you guys will kind of feel some of those plutonic types of themes throughout this entire transit, basically. So Venus spending a lot of time in the eighth house. Venus is still a benefic planet, and so it can bring benefit here. But there's this process of revision that needs to go on. There's these things being brought back from the past that goes on. There's this initiation of crisis that can potentially happen that causes us to reflect and revise something in this area of life. So, what is the eighth house? Well, this is basically the house of everything that people don't like to talk about. So, it's money, it's sex, it's power, it's intimacy, all of those things. And it is a very financial house, and Venus is a financial planet as well. The difference with the eighth house is it is assets and resources that are somehow connected to another person, or to an organization or something like that. So, for example, second house is more personal possessions, so the things that you own. So you can say, okay, well, I own a house, but do you have a mortgage? Do you have a bank loan? That is more like the eighth house. So this is the house of insurances, taxes, loans, inheritances. It's unearned wealth, it's sponsorship, any of those things where you're receiving from another. So it's the house of other people's assets, resources, belongings, and possessions, and those things that are joined in some way. So even like alimonies or any of those types of things. So money coming in through another person. So again, Venus is a benefic planet, so there can be benefit there, but there's also something being reworked here. And with the Venus Pluto conjunction, there can even be potentially some power struggles or crisis that occurs here. So that might be connected to what is mine and what is yours. You might even be required to take your power back from some form of situation. If someone is manipulating you with resources or something like that, or vice versa. Themes connected to those things can definitely come up during this transit. So, and then Venus also rules, this Venus retrograde can talk also about what we're reconnecting with. Venus in your guys' chart, and I also have a Gemini rising, so this is already, I've kind of already felt this, but Venus rules the 12th house, and it also rules the 5th house. So the 5th house being the house of romance, and also creative self-expression, things like that. So, these two areas of life will also be going through these profound transformations and these revisions and reworking of things connected to those areas of life in some way. So with it being the house of romance, with that Pluto conjunction, in a more shadow way, if you're dating, you can kind of track these plutonic types of people. And then during that retrograde period, it's kind of like, oh my God, who did I get into bed with? And that doesn't always have to mean literally. This house is basically who you get into bed with, whether that's, career partners or, any kind of, underground organizations that you're a part of, or anyone you've connected kind of finances, resources, or even the physical body with. So very much that kind of house. So there can be a huge rethinking around this area of life, and you might even be taking a more conventional or traditional type of approach, or becoming much more mature and serious and committed with the affairs of this house. And so this house is also talking about our ability to trust another person, and bond on that deep, deep emotional level with another person. So the fifth house lord transiting here, you can even be attracting kind of plutonic types of, partners. In one way, that might be really good for like a gold digger or something like that. In another way, it can be a lot of hidden or secretive activities around, romance or relationships and things like that. Or you can also be deep diving into the past. So actually, as soon as Venus entered the sign of Capricorn, I didn't even really think about it or realize it at the time, but I started doing these exercises around past relationship patterns and how those affected me and the beliefs that I created from those experiences. And that was like the first day that Venus had moved into the eighth house. So it can also be doing deep research and deep investigation around your relationship patterns, things like that in a more shadow way. It can talk about secrets coming out within romance, being very investigative, or meeting people who are very, you can be this way or they can be this way to you, kind of like invasive in some way, or doing, secretive, shady types of things. That's only in extreme cases. In another way, it can talk about, go changing the way that you approach romance, or deepening your bond on, this more emotional, deep level, or getting rid of because this is a house of trauma and traumatic experiences and things like that. So you can be going to the back to the past around what those are and doing that deep research and deep investigation around how you approach relationships as a result of having gone through those types of experiences. This is also the 12th house lord, and the 12th house is talking about things that are done behind your back. It's a very hidden house. It's a house of invisible worlds and realms or secrets as well. So again, do be aware of that energy in those extreme cases. But in another way, the 12th house is talking about kind of things that are done behind the scenes or in a secretive type of environment. So it can talk about secret and hidden relationships again, but it can also talk about going to relationship therapy, with a romantic partner, or even like if you have any power struggles, control issues with children and things like that. Those can be resolved, but maybe a crisis initiates, something there, and then you end up kind of getting into counseling together or something like that. That can also happen. So, especially though, when Venus makes those direct connections with Pluto, uh, be aware of, some of those more shadowy energies during that time period. 12th house is also the house of sleep and dreams. So, this can talk about either kind of having these wicked or dramatic or intense types of dreams, but you can also be receiving some kind of psychic messages or intuitive downloads. The 12th house, this is also self undoing behavior. And so maybe you do a lot of deep research and deep investigation around those things, and you start to do that transformational work around how that affects success, how that affects money, how that affects your creative self expression. Um, with that conjunction with Pluto, it can also talk about facing fears in these areas of life. So if you have a fear around, taking risks, or around romance, or something connected to children, or something connected to expressing yourself creatively, taking on center stage roles, you can start to be like thinking, that's what I need to achieve success. So I'm going to figure out where these fears came from, and what that self-undoing behavior is, and go very deep in those things and resolve those things with Venus's direct motion. So that becomes quite good. This is also the house of like gambling and like risk taking and things like that. So Venus Pluto conjunction, these are both financial planets. And so, there can be some powerful things going on related to making like investments or taking risks. But I would, recommend kind of avoiding that, especially during the retrograde period, because things may not be what they appear. Again, Venus and Pluto is a very powerful financial conjunction, but it's also a master illusionist. So there can be something misleading there. And then in that retrograde period, again, you can be like, who did I get into bed with? What did I kind of do here? And things like that. So again, that crisis might be initiated there. In terms of self-expression, your 5th house lord moving through the 8th house, this can mean that the way you express yourself can also go through these big, profound types of transformations, or you can express yourself creatively in more kind of dark ways. With Venus's retrograde, you can even go back to things that you used to previously enjoy, because the 5th house is, fun, talents, hobbies, interests, things you like to do for fun. And so maybe you go back to, some old ways of doing that, or maybe you get more mature and more committed about this area of life. So again, are the things that I do for fun blocking my success in some way? And so you can work to kind of transform those things, or the things that you're kind of interested in can, really shift in a powerful way as well. And this is, where we can have a revival of something. So again, this can talk about the revival of, trauma to be released in some way. This can talk about like the resurrection of an old romantic or intimate type of relationship, or again, readdressing issues connected there, because it is who or what you can be reconnecting with as well. And when it comes to joint assets or joint resources with another, you can really start to, take a look at how self-worth and self-esteem is playing a role there. And, issues connected to what's mine and what's yours, those can definitely occur, or there could be some kind of crisis with the support that you're receiving from another or something like that. Or maybe someone kind of, can be like manipulating you with, resources in some way. And this is also a transit of taking your power back, and it's in the house of Scorpio. So it does become quite, intense and things like that. But again, this is where this diamond can be forged, and, whatever's solidified in this time period can end up having a really beautiful, strong, and long lasting result in the long run. In another way, the 12th house lord conjunct Pluto. Again, this is very powerful for those in psychic fields or receiving messages beyond this life or beyond this realm and things like that. Releasing trauma, releasing self-undoing behaviors. Be aware of any, and this will be for very few people, but this is like an energy that can open you up to black magic or something going on there, because Venus Pluto has this very obsessive type of energy as well. So be aware of those things around that time. And I know that sounds kind of crazy to some, but I remember when I went to Bali, I went to this shaman and he told me that I had black magic done on me, and I knew it right away who I thought it was. And I asked him, I'm like, did you do this? And he admitted it. And so even like that blew me away. So sounds a little bit weird, but that can happen. Also amazing energy for, doing any kind of psychological work, occult work, doing any kind of healing, whether that's in your profession. This can also talk about partners' finances going through a big type of transformation as well. So all of those, so this is where this metamorphosis of love and relationships and money and things like that can be happening. Okay, this is also, the house of sex and intimacy. So how you approach those things in relationships can become a theme. Very good time, to like say go to like a therapist, a psychologist, a sex therapist, something like that. There can be some form of relationship crisis that does happen. So, this will be a little bit different for everybody. But one example, let's say with the fifth house lord being there, is that maybe there's some kind of power struggle over, children. Maybe you're going through a divorce and this crisis is initiated. And then the terms of those contracts and agreements and negotiations need to go through this process of revision of, again, what's mine and what's yours in this situation. Maybe there's a power struggle around the schedules with kids or something like that. So those can also happen. And then because the 12th, 5th, and 8th house are all kind of activated or interconnected here, this is also an indicator of pregnancy for some of you. So actually, I know, but it's a very transformational experience. And so that's part of the reason why pregnancy is also connected to the 8th house. This is the house of things that transform us forever. It's like the gateway. So we open a door and we go through it, and that door closes and locks forever, and there's not really any going back from there. So, I know someone who's Gemini rising, and I think it was 2013 when Venus was retrograde last in the sign of Capricorn. And she actually got pregnant, but for her, it was more of like a crisis type of thing. And she ended up not keeping it, which was very, very traumatic for her. So it was like a sudden, because 8th house is also sudden reversals and things like that. So something can be going on there, or it can talk about the conception of a child as well. This is also, this can even indicate, rethinking the way you approach intimacy within relationships. Is there something connected there to self-worth and self-esteem, the way you approach intimacy, that needs to be worked through? So that can also come about. Okay. Of course, those financial things connected to, taxes or loans, those financial agreements with others can be going through a process of transformation or rebuilding those, or something like that as well. Or going back and having to revise some of those things. You can be expressing yourself creatively in this kind of scorpionic type of way. Fifth house is also one of the houses that can be connected to education and its interests and things like that. So all of a sudden you get very interested in deep research and deep investigation, maybe around the occult or something mystical, hidden, taboo, life after death or something connected to sex or crisis emergency situations, those types of things as well that can come in, or expressing your creativity in a bit of like an intense, transformative, powerful way, let's say. So say you're a poet and your poems kind of get like more of these dark undertones, or say if you're an actor or something like that, that's a very powerful time, because this is like the house of transformation, the ability to transform yourself through your self-expression and create that illusion. If you're a makeup artist, maybe something's going on there where you pick up on like more darker types of themes, or it can talk about healing through creativity. So maybe you take like an art therapy class or something like that. So all these things can kind of happen. Okay. Okay, so I think that's everything for Gemini rising. So let's move on to Cancer. Okay, and then I did forget to mention really quickly before we move on to Cancer, with Gemini as well, Sun, Moon, or Rising. Again, this can talk about the need to form boundaries within relationships, or within those give and take things. What's mine, what's yours, what are you giving, how much am I giving? And that this can also mean money comes back to you that's owed to you from the past, and also any like certain things you've lost from the past can now reappear in some way. So I did forget to mention that. So let's take a look at Cancer rising. So for you guys, Venus is going retrograde in your 7th house, and Venus also rules your 4th house as well as your 11th house. So these are also connected to the energy here. So Venus retrograde in the 7th house, even though Venus is retrograde, again, it can still bring benefits or support, and it's spending 4 months in your 7th house. So this is a house of relationships, contracts, agreements, negotiations, and it's also a house of public visibility or dealing with others, those types of things. So, this can talk about contracts or clients coming back from the past, because this is who or what you're reconnecting with. So it can talk about reconnecting with a partner, or maybe a business partner from the past reappears in some way, for those things to be revisited, or maybe that relationship benefits you in some way. This is also, can talk about a huge revision going on around how you appear to the world, how you form relationships. Even within a partner's life, they can be going through some kind of big transformation, or making a lot of changes and things like that. This can also talk about an increased need or desire for more maturity in relationships, more commitment, taking those things much more seriously. So even with that conjunction with Pluto going on, maybe it's like, okay, well, these issues, it's time for these to be resolved. So you start going to relationship therapy, sex therapy, something like that, as well. Or even on a personal level, you can, find very because it's the house of consulting and things like that. So say you need a lawyer, you can find someone who's a very powerful lawyer, or maybe you meet like a life coach or something who's very transformational for you. And this is also, Carl Jung called this one of the houses of projection as well. So it's talking about, the first house is our identity and those qualities we very strongly identify with. And the 7th house is more like those shadow qualities, those disowned qualities and things like that. So you can even be doing some kind of shadow work and reclaiming gifts, from those shadow personalities that exist within all of us, and claiming those gifts in a very powerful way that benefits you. So that can also come in, or, working through things connected to your projections or expectations of others, that can also be happening. This is also a very social and business oriented house, so there can be a big focus on forming relationships there, or revising some form of contract agreement, or powerful negotiations going on with others. You've also got, this is the 4th house lord transiting the 7th house. So in one way, this is also the 7th from the 7th house. This is the 10th house from the 7th house. So that can talk about big changes going on within career for a partner. And in another way, though, this is your house of home and family life and private life and things like that. So there's some renegotiating that needs to go on, with a partner and things like that. So that might even be on the axis of, balancing out public life and private life in some way, issues connected there with a partner. That's something else that can manifest for some of you. Or this can talk about renegotiating terms of an agreement that are connected to home or property, or, you know, certain purchases, because the fourth house is conveniences and things like that. I would be aware of kind of making any, you know, of those contracts for purchases and things like that during the retrograde period. But this can also talk about, you know, revising a contract that you have with someone who's, you know, with Pluto there, maybe the renovation of a house or something, and you have to go back to this, you know, contract and renegotiate some of those terms or those prices, or, you know, whatever it is. This can even talk about a big transformation on an inner emotional, deeper level, because the fourth house is connected to who we are beneath the surface. It's inherited legacy, it's family, those private life types of issues and things like that. And those can somehow become more visible, and, you know, there can be some reworking that needs to be done in those areas of life. But it can even just talk about doing like a home renovation or something like that, and you have to, you know, kind of deal with all these contractors, or, you know, those types of things. Okay, then this is also the 11th house lord transiting the 7th house. So that, you know, is a very good indicator of being able to potentially create some relationships that can be financially beneficial. There can also be this energy of rethinking certain friendships, or, you know, what groups you're a part of and things like that as well. And you could become more visible in some way on, you know, social media platforms and things like that. It is quite good for those types of things. But you may encounter some kind of crisis or power struggle within one of those environments, whether that's with a friendship, whether that's with a group online or a group chat or something like that. And then those, you know, issues may need to be resolved. These are both very social and business oriented houses that are connected with dealing others. It's in a little bit different way. 7th house is more like those one-on-one dealings with others, and the 11th house is dealing with others on this grander type of scale. So that can also come in. This can even show, you know, if, because this is the house of consulting and things like that. Let's say you decide to hire like a success coach or something like that, and you really want to focus on achieving something in the area of, you know, the 11th house, goals, dreams, gains, you know, desires. Long-term goals and wishes are seen from the 11th house. So maybe you partner up with someone to kind of get those things done, or you know, you do some deep research and deep investigation of how to achieve those things, but maybe it takes this process of reflection somehow in that time period. Or maybe you're rethinking a certain collaboration that you've made with another. So maybe, you know, kind of some kind of crisis happens with this person, and which causes you to rethink, you know, that relationship. So that can also come in. This can also be what or who you're reconnecting with. So this can be reconnecting with old partners, business or personal, and things like that as well. This is, you know, actually quite good for those that are in client-based professions or contract-based work, things like that. It can talk about, you know, a legal or, you know, visible kind of crisis that happens as well in a public type of platform. So that can also come in. And this can also be where you're reconsidering your values. So, you know, Venus is the natural planet of love and relationships anyway, and it naturally rules the 7th house. So, you know, redefining what your value is within how you approach relationships. So creating those boundaries in a very strong way, or, you know, contemplating your self-worth and self-esteem and how that affects the way that you deal with others, or the way that you communicate with others, or the kind of people that you attract as well. This can also indicate in the 7th house that partner may be going through some kind of crisis or upheaval, some kind of reversal in this time period, or going through a very powerful transformation of their own as well. You know, Venus with Pluto in the sign of Capricorn in the 7th house. This can even talk about, say, like partner goes and gets like an aesthetic surgery of some kind or something like that. So there's many ways this energy can manifest. So I'll give you as many examples as I can, so you at least get a feel for that energy. And with the with the 11th house Lord here as well. This is a house of, you know, like-minded people, or, you know, causes and things like that you support. And so those can also go through a big transformation of some kind, or maybe you partner up with someone to do something in a powerful way to create change. And if you're in any kind of profession that, you know, involves helping others with any kind of dramatic change or upheaval or crisis, especially through consulting and things like that, this becomes an amazing energy. And you can even develop like a lot of social influence within this time, or it can be, again, some kind of visible you know, scandal or crisis or power struggle that can happen. But in another way, this can definitely boost your social influence with that energy. Okay. Making financial decisions with another person, with a partner, there could be themes around that require, you know, you to kind of go back and revise things with another. Again, what are the boundaries, what are the rules, what is the goal, what are the steps, you know, that planning with another person, financial planning with another person. Even with the 4th house Lord there, if it's wanting to elevate commitment within a relationship, again, the example that I gave in the beginning, this can be, you know, kind of reconsidering like moving in with a partner, or, you know, goal planning around, you know, your future with another person as well. Or, you know, it can be restructuring finances around, you know, home, or you know, with family. There could be some form of connection to finances there with home and things like that as well. Okay. Also very good for transformations on a deep emotional level, doing any of that personal development type of work, again, because your 4th house Lord is here. Or this can even indicate like getting very passionate and very intense into looking into family history or inherited legacy, or resolving any kind of deep family trauma that's can even come from generations and things like that as well. So that can also come in. Okay, so let's move on to Leo. Okay, so for Leo, sun, moon, or rising, this Venus retrograde is happening in the 6th house for you guys. So even though it's retrograde and you can experience some of those delays and things like that in this area of life, or, you know, this process of revision going on, you can still receive benefit and help and support coming from this area of life. And this is one of the more challenging houses. So this is the house of conflict, of debt, of disease. It's any of those like conflict or imbalance situations. Again, this is like the house of the victim or the savior. This is the natural house of Virgo. So it's all about, you know, fixing problems and solutions. That's why careers that are connected to the 6th house are connected to helping others resolve some kind of imbalanced situation. So whether that's, you know, a lawyer, whether that's protect and serve types of fields, whether that whether that's like a nutritionist or a health coach, or, you know, any of those things where you're helping others to fix or correct a problem. So Venus spending a lot of time here does give you the opportunity. It gives you some kind of benefit to or support in fixing or correcting a problem of some kind. This is also the house of health, diet, nutrition, exercise, lifestyle, what you do in your daily life, or what you do on a regular basis as well. So those things can be going through this process of revision. So, you know, maybe especially with this Pluto connection that happens here, maybe there's some kind of, you know, health crisis, or a powerful realization of some kind, where that causes you to kind of go back and say, okay, well, these things definitely need to change. Or you start doing like exercise that you really enjoy or something like that. Or you go back to things in this area of life that you used to enjoy. So maybe you used to enjoy like making a smoothie every day and you go back to that. Maybe you used to enjoy going to the gym every day and you go back to doing that. Something like that can happen. This is also an area of life that can show who or what you're reconnecting with. So you can be reconnecting, you know, with your health. in some way, but you can also be reconnecting with, this is the house of employees and co-workers. So it can show, co-workers, relationships from the past associated there can come back for some sort of revision or something to be worked through there. Or they can give you some kind of added benefit in some way. Or, if you have employees or something like that, maybe some terms of those relationships, maybe they go through some kind of crisis or power struggle, and those relationships are reworked and revised in some way. That's a potential manifestation, but someone can also bring you help and benefit and support coming through this area of life as well. This is also one of the houses of debt. And so Venus conjunct Pluto can be an aspect of financial crisis or something like that, or just bring up this need to practice more power and control over personal finances, especially within your daily life. So maybe during this transit, you get very serious about the way that you spend or save or invest and earn, how finances are connected to your lifestyle. Are those realistic? Are those practical? Are those good in the long run? So you can also be making very strong, committed goals in this area of life, especially connected to love or relationships, to money, to finances, to value, and things like that as well. This can talk about, for some, the dissolution of a contract or agreement. So maybe there's some form of power struggle because of some imbalance or unfairness or something like that, or some problem that's having a really hard time to be resolved. And maybe that ends up resulting in the dissolution of a contract, which is connected with the 6th house being 12th from the 7th as well. So that can be going on. This is also house of service, though. So maybe you start, really enjoying being of service in some way. So it is helping the poor, the unfortunate, those going through difficult or imbalanced situations themselves. So you might even find that maybe you derive a lot of, joy or pleasure, something like that, from helping those in need, or things like that as well. In another way, this is the house that, it can even talk about some form of power struggle within litigation in some way. So, that can be quite difficult. You might have to, again, renegotiate the terms of agreement with another person within those legal matters or something like that. This house does have that shadow side of, again, like the disenfranchised and things like that. So with this here, it can even talk about, with the Pluto Venus conjunction, something going on with basically where someone kind of does some shady behavior or something like that, and that needs to be confronted, and that changes how you approach that relationship in some way. This is the house of enemies and things like that as well. And so, that energy can come in with Venus conjunct Pluto. That can even be talking about having an issue or power struggle with, a woman in your workplace or something like that as well. Or maybe you start to question, because this is also the house of employment. There could be a big transformation going on in connection with the kind of work that you do or what you do on a regular basis. And maybe that has a strong connection to value. So, maybe rediscovering your value in some way and thinking, okay, well, I'm worth actually more than, this particular position or something like that. Because this is also the 10th house lord being conjunct Pluto. So this can even talk about a power struggle or powerful negotiation going on with boss figures, with authority figures, within career and things like that. But it can be a source of conflict in some way. So being aware of, that shadow energy, or this can show that your relationship with a boss or authority figure or something like that, father figure, those represented by the 10th house, can go through this very powerful transformation as well. Through, even doing deep research and deep investigation. So, I know this one girl, and she was constantly power struggling with her boss, and she was in a 6th house type of industry. She was working with women who had been abused and things like that as well. And she was always having these power struggles with the boss. And then me and her did like a coaching session together. And, you know, I kind of asked her, I'm like, what do you think that she's there to teach you? And so we did this whole process around releasing some of those resentments and all those things and reframing the situation. And then actually she started to get on with her boss quite well and received a promotion. So those reversals, transformations, power struggles, control issues can be seen, but also resolved through, you know, that process of transformation within this time period, for example. This can also be doing a lot of deep research and deep investigation around, you know, these areas of life, especially because this is your 3rd house lord and your 10th house lord transiting your 6th house. So this can also show being very actively involved in daily life in those career duties and responsibilities and things like that. But your 3rd house lord being here, especially with that Pluto conjunction, again, it can give power struggles within, you know, communications and things like that. This can show that sibling is somehow going through a powerful transformation of their own and things like that. So, you know, whether that's a health transformation, whether they're going through a divorce, whether they're going through some kind of perceived crisis or upheaval or reversal of some kind, those can come in, or maybe they're just making very powerful changes within their own life. This is also, you know, the 3rd house lord being in the 6th house can show a lot of active communication within daily life, within work life. And again, renegotiation of contracts, agreements, and things like that can be going on through conversation. So for example, I know someone who has a Leo rising, and during this time period, that's when he's going to, like, he's kind of scaled the market of what it is that he's doing, and he's in contract-based work. And during this time period, he's going to approach his boss, which he brings a lot of value to this guy's company. And he's going to ask for a raise, or for him to match those rates. Otherwise, he's kind of out of there. So, you know, it can also be like that type of thing. This is also 3rd house lord transiting the 6th house can talk about doing some kind of learning or training that is somehow connected to the kind of work that you're doing, or connected to lifestyle or health, diet, nutrition in some way. And maybe some of those messages or conversations that you have or receive within that time period, you know, helps you transform this area of life in some way. So that can also come in. This can also be, 3rd house is a very entrepreneurial house. It is a very business and social oriented house as well. So, you know, if you're in any kind of self-started business or things connected to self-made wealth, again, the example that I had, this guy also has that. You know, it can be talking about rebudgeting, restructuring your business, restructuring the duties and responsibilities and what it is that you do for work. Can also be coming in, or fixing or correcting a problem within those things, especially with that being the 10th house lord as well. So a lot of restructuring going on within, you know, career life as well, or within the relationships with those people in those areas of life. So 3rd house is also siblings or close relatives, people in your daily kind of or local environment as well. Okay, then the 3rd house, this is, you know, also the house of skills, of your craft, skills of the hands and things like that. And also a house of the exchange of ideas and information. So even with that Pluto influence, maybe you're really researching how to create a health transformation. Maybe you're learning skills there. Maybe you're learning skills or reading or writing a lot about, you know, the occult or healing, or, you know, maybe you're creating some kind of information piece that has to do with how to transform your life in some way. That can also be happening. Okay, then at the same time, this can indicate that reputation or status can change within a relationship or within a career, within your public life in some way. And sometimes, again, that can be initiated by some form of crisis or a big transformation going on there. And this is where a powerful process of reconsideration can be happening as well. So again, that could be connected to health. You know, what it is that you do in your daily life. Are the things that you do in your daily life, are they something that you enjoy? Are they supporting your long-term goals and the achievements that you're trying to create as well? And this is where you can become much more committed or responsible, mature, and you might even need to create boundaries here, whether that's with coworkers, whether that's with an employer, whether that's with, siblings or, relatives and things like that. That can definitely all come in, or even creating boundaries within, your business and things like that, or within communication. So it can be kind of fixing or resolving some kind of power struggle within communication through saying this is my boundary, and you've kind of crossed that. So that can also come in. Okay. Okay. Okay, this is also the house of service. So again, maybe you're doing something that's very, transformative in some way, that is somehow connected to service. Maybe you encounter, some kind of crisis, again, connected to health or connected to, money or something like that. Or maybe you are, helping or benefiting someone who's in one of those more difficult situations, change, their experience in some way. So that can also be coming in. This can also be an amazing time here to release any kind of addictions and things like that. This house also has a connection to those. So things we do on a regular basis. Venus and Pluto is quite obsessive and things like that as well. So, but this gives you the opportunity to change something that you enjoy in this area of life. So say you like to have, I don't know, 3 glasses of wine or something like that on a regular basis. And then you start to think, okay, well, what kind of, because the 6th house, our lifestyle choices basically create the results that we have in life. So, even, doing research around how to have success through changing or altering daily habits. So, like there's this exercise in coaching where if you want to achieve something, you think of someone who's already done that, and then you kind of scale that back and say, okay, well, what do you think what they do on a regular basis? What do you think, they think about themselves? What do you think they believe? What do you think from the time that they wake up in the morning to the time they go to bed? What do you think they do every day? And so there can be powerful transformations with those that can give really great, really amazing results. And again, this is where this diamond can be forged. So whatever's created under this pressure, under this stress, under this transformation can have a really long lasting, beautiful, and solid result as well. Okay, so let's move on to Virgo, Sun, Moon, or Rising. Okay, so for Virgo rising, I was actually quite excited to be able to talk about this energy with you guys in particular, because I believe that this is a very auspicious type of transit for you guys. The reason is that Venus is going to be spending 4 months in your guys' 5th house. Venus is said to have planetary joy in the 5th house. Venus loves to be in the 5th house. Then you've also got your 2nd house Lord spending 4 months in the 5th house, and your 9th house Lord spending 4 months in the 5th house. So these are actually wealth yogas or very lucky combinations to have, especially if you have those natally. So I just wanted to mention that before we jump in. Of course, with Venus being retrograde, there's still this element of something needing to be reworked or revised in this area of life. But, this can definitely, again, be a bit of an auspicious type of transit. This is the house of good luck and good fortune, past life, good karma. 9th house is also connected with those things. And then it's making a connection as well to your financial house. So the house of, money and resources and those types of things. So let's dig into that energy. So the 5th house, this is, again, this is the house of past life, good karma and things like that. It's a house of fun and recreation and games and play. And I mean, this house is ruled by Capricorn for you guys, which is part of the reason why Virgos do kind of love hard work and things like that as even like a hobby, or they love structure, those types of things. So in that way, this is also really great energy with Venus transiting the 5th house to really solidify or build a strong foundation connected to your finances, to your resources and things like that as well. A great time for rebudgeting or restructuring what it is that you value and the efforts that you put into those things. But there's also this big focus on you know, enjoyment, fun and enjoyment is seen through the fifth house, whether that's through work or whether that's through, you know, interests or talents or hobbies and things like that as well. So this I feel is quite a nice energy for Virgo rising people. This is also the house of, you know, the spotlight, of center stage roles and things like that. And again, there can be some kind of process of revision going on here. So house of creativity and creative projects and things like that. This has something to do with, you know, the intellectual mind as well. It's third house from the third. So creative and original ideas. You can definitely be having some kind of benefit coming through this area of life, even if you have to practice a lot of hard work or a lot of commitment or high level of maturity or a lot of meticulous goal planning and setting in this area of life, which I feel like Virgo's naturally very good at anyway. This is the house of your natural talents and self-expression as well. So there's added benefit coming to this house, even though that energy is retrograde and you can have, you know, in terms of like a creative project, um, that can be kind of going back to something that you used to enjoy doing, or it can be picking up an old creative idea or something like that and really, really developing it to its full or highest potential. So you can have an achievement there. So that comes in. This is also the house of self-expression. So Venus is a benefic planet. This is a very charming, very graceful type of planet, very, you know, feminine, very stylish type of planet. So, you know, there can even be, you know, a difference in the way that you are expressing yourself outwardly to the world and things like that as well. So maybe some beautifying going on here that can be happening. This is also the house of romance. So this transit can definitely bring up old relationships from the past with romantic partners, or even like a process of revision. There could be a need for boundaries with these things as well, with Venus's transit through the sign of Capricorn. So this can be needing to set healthy boundaries in relationships somehow with children. So maybe say, for example, you have like an older child or something like that, and you're always like giving them money or something, and now might be the time to set those boundaries and create extra responsibility for them, and then something positive can, you know, come out of that, or that could be kind of an constructive experience for them, let's say. Can be one sort of manifestation, or within romantic life, creating boundaries or reevaluating self-worth and self-esteem when it comes to how you approach romance. So are the romantic relationships in my life where my boundaries are not being respected and things like that, or am I being, you know, treated in these relationships with, you know, the highest level of respect that my self-worth and self-esteem deserves? Because this is also your second house lord, so becoming very serious and mature and committed with those things, connected to the house of self-worth and self-esteem as well, and kind of not budging with those. So that can also come in. Putting a lot of hard work, a lot of hard effort into a creative project of some kind, a creative idea of some kind, even if you're thinking of starting some sort of self-started business or something like that. Amazing time period for those things. And this can be kind of where you do that process of breaking all those things down and setting up deadlines and setting up the structure of that business and things like that. So I wouldn't recommend, you know, if you are thinking of, you know, starting a business or launching a creative project, I might not do that during the retrograde time period. But when Venus moves direct, you know, whatever's been developed in that time can have really beautiful, long lasting results as well. Sorry about that, Virgos. I had a little technical glitch there. So this is also the house of risk taking, of speculation, of luck, as well. So this can actually be with your second house lord here and your ninth house lord here. This is actually quite a lucky transit for, you know, things that you can be investing in, or with the retrograde energy of Venus, that can be things that you're reinvesting time, energy, or resources into as well. So those can be quite beneficial. However, especially with, you know, investments and speculation and things like that, again, during the retrograde period, maybe not as recommended, but again, Venus will be spending 4 months in this house for you. So you can have or receive some kind of benefit, help, or support from this area of life as well. Then this is also one of the houses that is connected with education or those things that you enjoy doing as well. So again, things from the past can return in a very powerful way to be reworked or be revised. But in the long run, they can also bring you some form of benefit. This is also what or who you're reconnecting with. So this can again be talking about reconnecting with a romantic partner from the past in some way. So let's talk a little bit about the Venus-Pluto conjunction that's going to be happening there, and the retrograde back over Pluto and the third pass to Pluto. Because this is also an area of life where you can encounter some kind of change or crisis or upheaval or reversal in some way. And so that can also be connected to romantic life. So this can indicate, maybe even if you're dating or something like that, if you meet someone, especially around the time when Venus and Pluto make that first conjunction, there might be some kind of illusion there, or maybe you meet a very transformative type of person. That can go one of two ways, but it causes you to reflect and revise maybe the way that you approach romance or the way you approach relationships, or it can indicate some kind of secret or hidden plutonic types of developments within relationships that can even cause you to kind of question your own self-worth and self-esteem. And so there's work being done there, but again, it can be initiated by some form of crisis. This can indicate that a child can be going through a big personal transformation of their own as well. So even, for example, say you put up those boundaries with money or whatever it is with what you're giving your child. Say they're almost an adult and they're at the age they could have a job or something like that. So maybe they, get their first job or something. And again, that can have this good, long-lasting kind of result that teaches them about money or finances and things like that. But maybe that's a very transformative type of process for them, or it can indicate potentially having power struggles in a relationship with a child or something like that. That can also be going on. Or even, this is very good for changing the ways that you have fun. If you have any self-destructive types of ways of having fun that somehow block your success or something like that, this can be a really good time for elimination of those things or change with those things. That can come as well. This is also where you can encounter power struggles and control issues. So Venus is your second house lord, and it's also your ninth house lord. So this can talk about power struggles, control issues over money, over resources, with father figures, with teachers, mentors, guides, gurus, or even within your belief system. So maybe there's a big restructuring around, the belief system, and that ends up being a really amazing process that helps you to express yourself better. Or again, it can be confronting fears in this area of life. So fears connected to taking on center stage roles, fears connected to taking risks or something like that. Some of those themes or developments can also be going on. With Venus being your ninth house lord, making that connection with Pluto, this can also talk about a big change in your field of study, or maybe you're doing a lot of deep research and deep investigation around things like psychology, or doing research around, your belief system, changing any negative, limiting toxic beliefs or behaviors, again, or ways of having fun and things like that. Or maybe you change your field of study. Maybe you take a foreign trip or something like that. That's very, very transformative for you in some way. That can also happen, but in a more shadowy, it can be some kind of power struggle over belief systems or something like that, or a crisis of faith or belief, within your life. And then maybe that causes you to really reflect and revise some things connected to those areas of, well, maybe your vision for the future changes in a very powerful way, or maybe you get involved with very spiritual studies or occult types of studies, or you look for the deeper meaning and deeper purpose behind, whatever crisis or something like that has happened. So that can also come in. In another way, it can be like sex scandal with a teacher kind of thing for very few of you, I'm sure. But that can also come in. This can even, again, it can give power struggles over values as well, over material resources in some way. So that can also come in. And the people that you meet in connection with this area of life, so you can meet very transformative teachers. So if you are looking for like a transformational coach or something during this time, That's a very powerful aspect for those types of things. Or maybe you just meet someone, an inspirational figure, something who totally transforms your perspective on life in some way. Or a romantic relationship that somehow changes your view or perspective on, you know, the world, or changes your belief system in some way is also possible. And this can be some kind of crisis, change, upheaval, big transformation going on with personal finances. So how you spend, save, invest, and earn, you know, so it can even be initiated by some kind of, you know, crisis. Then let's say this is happening in the 5th house. So maybe you encounter financial crisis where there's a big transformation in the way that you're earning money. So say you lose your job or something, but that maybe that is the initiation or the push that was needed to kind of get thinking about this creative idea that you've always had and always wanted to do, and you go back to that and you develop that, and start this business or something like that. Okay, so this is also a transit that can definitely boost, you know, creativity, enjoyment, fun in your life. So those are all very, very positive things. Again, you can be changing the way that you approach fun, the things that you find fun, or, you know, talents that you used to have or hobbies you used to have. You could pick those back up from the past, you know, in a way that is quite meaningful. Okay, so I think that's everything I want to mention with Virgo. Self-expression also. So this can be, you know, big transformation of the way that you express yourself creatively. And sometimes that can even have, you know, more darker types of undertones. Again, this is like an aspect of pain through creativity, or expressing pain through creativity, or channeling pain into something creative and having a really amazing result. So that can also come in. And then in a shadow way, again, Pluto is, you know, quite obsessive, quite invasive. So around romantic life, there could be some of those themes. Or again, you know, there can be the potential to transform a romantic relationship, or revive, bring back from the dead or something, you know, a relationship there. Those things can also come in. And if you're in any kind of, you know, entertaining fields, or, you know, fields again where you're taking on center stage roles and things like that, this is a very powerful, creative, dramatic type of energy as well. So it can be quite powerful for creating something, you know, in this area of life, which is the house of creativity as well. And in another way, this can also talk about attracting very taboo or foreign types of relationships. So maybe someone from a very different belief system, or very, you know, different culture, something like that. With Venus retrograde in the 5th house also being your 2nd house lord, this can even be someone from like early childhood or something like that. Someone you used to go to school with, a relationship can pop back up there, or relationship with a teacher, those types of things. Okay, so let's move on to Libra rising. Okay, so for Libra, sun, moon, or rising, you guys are having Venus retrograde in your 4th house. So Venus will be spending 4 months in your 4th house. So this transit, even though that retrograde is there, Venus is still a benefic planet, so will bring help, benefits, and support through what is represented by this house. Of course, with the retrograde energy, though, it means we can be required to put more work or more effort into these things, and that this process of revision or reevaluation is also needed within this area. So what is the 4th house? This is the house of our foundation. It's connected with our roots, with ancestry, with inherited legacy. It's our home environment. It's our private life. It's our inner emotional world as well, who we are at home. It's the house of taking care of something as well, nurturing something. And of course, it's, you know, home, family, property, land, homeland, all of those types of things. So this is where Venus is spending a lot of time. So, you know, benefits can be coming through, you know, family and things like that. However, with the Venus-Pluto conjunction that's going to be going on here, there will be some developments where there can be potentially power struggles within the home or within the home environment, with family members, where some of those relationships may need to be revised, or some of those issues may need to be worked through. In another way, Pluto is you know, kind of like this planet of destruction and this death and rebirth process. So this can definitely talk about renovating home environment. In the sign of Capricorn, Venus in Capricorn in your fourth house can also indicate you become much more serious or committed or mature, responsible, or trying to achieve something or reach a goal in connection with this area of life as well. So maybe that's connected to home. Maybe you're building something here. Maybe you're creating strong boundaries with family or family members, or how you relate to each other within the home, or even how you relate to yourself on the inner emotional type of level. So if it is building something, of course, Venus rules you guys. So you can be very actively involved in the affairs of this house as well during this 4-month period, creating something here, building something here as well. So you know, this can even talk about building things for the home. So my fiance has a Libra moon sign, and you know, during this retrograde time period, that's when his fishing season ends. And so, you know, that's when he wants to build this deck for the hot tub. He wants to build like this coffee station, all these things. So building those things, you know, for the home, or beautifying the home in some way, going through a process of revision there and things like that. But also when it comes to home environment with like property or land or real estate, those types of things, there can be some power struggles that can be indicated there, or the need to renegotiate a contract or an agreement, whether that's say with like a home designer, say with that, if that's like with a real estate agent or something like that, or contractors who are coming in and out of your home. And those can be initiated by some kind of, you know, crisis or power struggle before those revisions are made. So that connection with Pluto is still there. But this can even be like, for example, if there's a bit of a power struggle within the home environment, let's say, for example, with the example of my fiance wanting to build some things for the home, I'm sure I'm going to be helping him do that. And I'm pretty sure that's where those power struggles might come from doing this collaborative effort, trying to do something from the home together. But like, maybe I like it this way, maybe he likes it that way. So there's some kind of compromise needed, or something going on there as well. So those things can be going on. You can also be doing like enjoying time at home, or in, you know, your space at home and things like that. Doing a lot of deep transformational inner emotional work can definitely be seen with this energy, or doing a lot of deep research and deep investigation into ancestry, into legacy, all of those. Doing a complete transformation of something in your home, or something in your emotional world, something within your family and things like that. Those can all be going on. And then this is also your first house lord. So the first house lord with those connections with Pluto can definitely talk about a big transformation just going on with your whole path in life, actually. So this is also one of the houses of motherhood and things like that. So, you know, if it's bringing in a new family member, if it's getting pregnant or something like that, that can totally transform, because for you guys, it rules your first and your eighth house. So two houses that are associated with pregnancy or childbirth, or nurturing something. You know, it can indicate that, you know, there's something where you need to take care of someone, or take care of something suddenly, and then that changes kind of your purpose in life, your path in life in some way. Because the first house is, you know, how we initiate things. That has to do with our approach to the world. It's also, you know, appearance, personality, identity, those types of things. So again, doing any of that inner transformational work. Or there can be you know, big transformations with that are connected to appearance of something, and that can even, you know, that can relate to the home environment, or also to the physical body in some way, or how you initiate things. That can also be something that transforms in a powerful way. At the same time, you've also got the eighth house lord spending 4 months in the fourth house. So again, it's almost like a secondary indicator of, you know, the eighth house is basically, you know, all those things that we don't like to talk about. So it's death, rebirth, crisis, transformation, upheaval, reversal, sex, intimacy, money, all of these things. But if we're making that connection to the fourth house, again, it can indicate some kind of, you know, crisis within home or family environment that services some of those, you know, traumas or issues, or creates like a power struggle where something within those relationships may need to be resolved. In another way, it can talk about taking out some form of loan, or there can be some kind of power struggles over joint assets or resources connected to home or property or land. That can definitely come up as well. If it is taking out a loan, say to do that, like redecorating or to do those renovations or property investment and things like that, I definitely would avoid making those financial commitments during the Venus retrograde time period for sure. But this can be a reconsideration of, what do I want to invest in? Or this can be getting very serious, getting very committed about your foundation, what you want to build, what you want to grow. Maybe you decide that I want to have like this stable home life within a relationship. I want to have a family and I want to start to kind of build that. So it can also, indicate, big transformation that way, where you're wanting to build or create something in this area of life, and maybe terms of a contract or agreement need to change within that process. The eighth house is also like mysteries and secrets and things like that. So maybe you're, doing a lot of those things within home or within home life. In some cases, it can indicate maybe like some family secret comes out or something like that. And maybe that's this initiator of crisis. And that process of revision is kind of done from that point on. But again, these things, Venus is a benefic planet and it can give good results towards the end of this transit as well, of whatever's been worked through and redeveloped. So one thing that can happen is family trauma or something like that can kind of, surface to be dealt with and to be healed, because the eighth house is also the house of healing as well. In extreme cases, but I don't want to create this for anybody, but, the eighth house Lord transiting the fourth house, in a more gentle way, can talk about maybe having like plumbing issues or something like that, or some pipe bursts, or, something can kind of go on. But it can be some kind of, destruction, something destructive going on within the home environment, or something, very eighth house going on in the home environment as well. So again, creating conscious transformation there is a good way to navigate that energy. So building something for the home, transforming something there, or doing that deep emotional work can also be seen. But it can even be talking about power struggles or control issues over joint assets, joint resources within private life or within home life and things like that as well. This can also give, because this is from the seventh house, the eighth house Lord is the partner's second house Lord, and this is happening in the 10th from the 7th. So there can also be power struggles or control issues connected to partner's finances and career that are going on a lot within home life and things like that. So, they can be going through some kind of career crisis or financial crisis, or that can also be on the positive side, where they're just transforming their finances maybe in like a very powerful way. So maybe they make this investment and, they get this promotion within career or something, and then you're able to afford this nice house or something. Or maybe it indicates they lose their job and then they go bankrupt or something like that. Those are two very extreme opposites. With Pluto, it's usually those things somewhere in the middle, but everything with Pluto sounds intense and black and white. And it's good to just highlight the extreme side of the spectrum on both ends, because it's usually somewhere in the middle there. Okay. Also, things connected with this can indicate receiving some kind of family inheritance or something like that with the retrograde. That can even be, some kind of delay going on there, money that's owed to you from others from the past that is connected to family or something like that. Those things can come back up, or taxes, issues with, taxes connected to property in some way, or with real estate or contracts or agreements that are connected to those binding agreements that have to do with finance or loans. Again, there can be developments around those where some of those things might need to be reworked or revised as well. Okay. This is also an area of life where, where or who you can be kind of reconnecting with something. So this can be an energy of reconnecting with someone from your family, right? Reconnecting with someone from childhood in some way, even reconnecting with yourself on a deep emotional level. That can also be happening. This is where you can also need to take your power back in some way. So that might be connected to home life or something that's going on in your private life as well, where you reevaluate your self-worth and self-esteem. You get very committed and serious and create boundaries in this area of life to try to achieve something as well. Okay. Okay, this is also where you may need to face some kind of you know, fears and things like that with that Plutonic type of energy, especially with the 8th house being involved. So again, you know, this is a great time period for resolving any kind of early trauma, or seeing like a family therapist, or digging into those family secrets and things like that, doing family, you know, therapy, doing healing with a family. If you're in any of those kind of professions that is connected with providing a safe place for others and things like that, that can be quite, you know, transformative or good at this time. Okay, so let's move on to Scorpio. Okay, so for Scorpio, sun, moon, or rising sign, Venus will be spending 4 months in your guys' 3rd house. So, you know, again, Venus is a benefic planet. So even with this retrograde energy, even with this conjunction with Pluto, that's going to be happening 3 times in this house for you guys. Venus can still bring benefits or help or support coming through this area of life. So what is the 3rd house? The 3rd house, first of all, you know, I do think that this is, in one way, a bit of a wealth generating house, but it is connected more to self-made wealth. And this house makes very strong financial connections, even though it's not traditionally associated with being a wealth generating house. But this is the 11th house from the 5th house, which is gains of the 5th house. So gains of taking, you know, risk, gains of self-started business, things like that as well. It's 8th house from the 8th house, another financial house. 5th house from the 11th house, a lucky house from the house of gains. It's 2nd from the 2nd, so the house of resources and money from the house of resources and money, and things like that. So this house makes very strong financial connections, and it's also a very business and social oriented house. So there can definitely be very important developments around, you know, business or self-started business, creative ideas, doing some kind of building around this area of life, receiving benefits and support with those types of endeavors. Or if you're in any kind of field that involves, you know, some kind of speaking or writing and things like that, this can actually be a time where you're able to create something very powerful in this area of life, because that Venus and Pluto conjunction in your 3rd house of writing and speaking ability, this can even be really amazing for sales, with being very persuasive with speech, or creating something, you know, of beauty in this area of life, and receiving help and support with that. And Venus is also your 12th house lord in the 3rd house. So this can even talk about some of the things that you're writing or speaking about, or some of the things that you are creating with your hands at this time, or the skills that you're developing can even have this like higher connection where you can receive intuitive downloads with those things, because the 12th house is about connecting to something higher, connecting to invisible worlds and things like that. This is happening in your 3rd house of conversations, of self-talk, of the intellectual mind. So it can indicate having messages coming from past lives, coming from invisible worlds, coming from this sense of divine inspiration, dreams, intuitive downloads, and turning those into some form of product, or into some kind of skill that you have as well, or into some kind of writing or speaking project and things like that. 3rd house is also connected with, you know, crafts, and again, doing things with, you know, your hands, or maybe you receive like this intuitive idea or something that, you know, totally transforms this area of life in some way. In some cases, Venus in the 3rd house, this can also, especially with this Pluto conjunction, this is where we can be who or what we can be reconnecting with. So we can be reconnecting with things from our past here. And so this can even talk about, though, with that Pluto-Venus conjunction, getting like psychic readings, or getting like astrology readings or something like that during this time period, or even running into people with past life connections, because Venus, the ruler of the 12th house, is making connection with the planet Pluto, which is resurrecting something from the dead, or receiving messages from, you know, those invisible worlds, or from relatives who passed on and things like that as well. So those can come in. Also, a lot of, you know, studying or deeper research or deep investigation done into things connected to the 12th house, which is also very intuitive, very psychic house, very spiritual house, house of losses and dissolvement of things. So, you know, doing your own research and development around those things can bring a lot of understanding. There could be a big reevaluation of self-worth and self-esteem through losses, or through difficult experiences that you've been through, and resolving some of those, especially through conversation. So if you're in fields of therapy where you're helping people through communication, that can be great. Or if you're thinking of getting into therapy, or you're doing writing therapy, or you're doing journaling therapy or something like that, if you're doing affirmations and things like that, those can all be powerful during this time period as well. Because 12th house is also things that we do behind the scenes. It's a very creative, imaginative, elusive type of house. So you can develop skills there, receive messages from that area of life as well. But with the Pluto conjunction we have going on, it can indicate some form of crisis, where a crisis might initiate those things, or a power struggle with someone might, initiate those things as well. So 12th house Lord conjunct Pluto, this can even mean some kind of crisis or upheaval where something is lost or something is dissolved, in a powerful way that causes this process of reintrospection and things like that. So that is, one manifestation. And another way, if you're in sales or you have a business or something, this is a very, Venus in the third house can make you very charming and influential and things like that with speech. So those things can be quite good as well. Or again, for those writing and speaking projects, if you're doing anything that involves communication or media, or say you have a blog or a YouTube channel, those types of things, you can have powerful creative ideas in this area of life, or develop something here that is quite powerful as well. At the same time, then you've also got your 7th house Lord transiting your 3rd house. So this can also mean that communications within partnerships become very significant within this time period as well. And with the influence of Pluto, so maybe some of those things are a little bit more around taboo types of subjects, or maybe, again, this can indicate power struggles in communication with someone, whether that's in a personal relationship, maybe that's a power struggle with the way that you present yourself to the world, or the way that you navigate relationships, or this can show up as another person who challenges you through communication as well. So maybe there's some form of power struggle going on there that transforms that relationship through communication. In another way, again, going to therapy, or if you are a therapist yourself, or having deep, meaningful, conversations can be a big source of healing as well. Especially with the 12th house Lord there, or, having conversations with another person in private, because the 12th house is also this very private, secretive type of environment. In another way, 12th house Lord being conjunct Pluto, the 12th house is also connected to self-undoing behaviors. This is the subconscious mind and things like that. And there's also this connection to the house of relationships. So you might be reevaluating any kind of self-sabotaging types of behaviors that you have within relationships, and creating boundaries and things like that there. Even within your own self-talk, those things can be going on. And this can even indicate finding out some kind of secret or hidden or private information about like a partner or something like that, which can be like this initiator of some kind of crisis where those conversations need to be had. Or there can be, power struggle in communication over difference in opinion or something like that. Important decisions connected to relationships may also be coming up. And with that retrograde energy, this also means that, again, this is what you can be revisiting, or what kind of comes up in a powerful way, or what you're reconnecting with. So you can be reconnecting with, old skills you used to have, or old writing projects, or, something that you used to like enjoy doing, like crafting or something like that. Those types of things can come up, or you can be reconnecting with a sibling, reconnecting with a close relative in some way. This can also be like, this is the house of short distance travel and things like that. So it can be revisiting somewhere that you like to go, taking, those short trips, doing that retreat, because the 12th house is also the 12th house ruler is also connected to, this is the house of places of isolation or confinement. So jails, hospitals, asylums, retreats. So it can talk about taking like a short distance type of retreat with a partner as well. Just getting, away and having some alone time there. Those types of things can be quite good as well. And this is the house of exchange of ideas and information. So again, there can be very powerful conversations going on there, but the areas of life that Venus is connected to, the 12th house and the 7th house, these areas of life can go through profound transformations as well. So this can indicate partner going through, very transformative experience or some form of crisis or upheaval or reversal in some way. And this is also the 12th house is the 6th house from the 7th house. So that can also have something to do with partners, work life or something like that as well. So maybe it's like a crisis at work where they're really, really stressed out and then you guys just take this short trip together, whatever it is. Or maybe you guys have a conflict that needs to be resolved through talking that out through therapy or something like that. So many different ways that that can manifest. Also with Venus in the 3rd house, with Pluto there, this could be doing a lot of deep research and deep investigation around, partnerships and things like that. So that can be kind of like being very, very like investigative about, your partner, or kind of like invasive there, or they can be that way to you. Or again, this can be doing a lot of research and investigation around anything to do with like consulting, contract-based work, client-based work, around the invisible realms or spirituality, finding higher meaning, higher purpose. All of those can also be seen. Okay. So then with Venus being retrograde here as well, this can also be an area of life where you may need to create boundaries or take your power back in some way. So that can be within relationships. That can be creating, boundaries within relationships where you start to communicate, some of those boundaries and really kind of stick to those things. Or if someone's influenced you in kind of like a negative way, or 12th house is also like hidden things done behind our back and things like that. So if something, is said or done behind your back, maybe you confront that through communication, and that causes this big revision or process of, this death and rebirth process within a specific relationship within your life. So that's another way that that can play out for you guys. Okay, you can also be reinvesting in something connected to this area of life. So reinvesting in education, reinvesting in developing a certain skill. This is also the house of languages and of, speaking and things like that, of self-talk. So again, this can be a powerful time for doing affirmation types of work, or going back to, say, you used to like really enjoy creating something, because Venus and Pluto together, or say, you're trying to do some kind of healing or something like that. This is the energy of, it's like the pain of creativity. So channeling any of those things into creating something very, very powerful. Again, it's quite good for business related types of things, especially if you're in sales. You can become quite influential. There can be even like a sudden rise or increased visibility if you are on, a media platform or something like that. There can also be power struggles there. But, this can talk about creating something like a very transformative or powerful type of, writing or speaking project or something like that, that elevates your success in some way. Okay, during the retrograde time period though, that, if you are like, that can be when you're going back to like a certain field of study or something you were previously interested in, or doing a big review around, some of your opinions and things like that. But for starting, brand new things connected to this area of life. So say you want to launch like an entrepreneurial type of endeavor or project or something like that. The time for development of those things might be more when Venus is in retrograde, and then wait for the release until Venus starts to move direct again. Okay, so that's everything for the sign of Scorpio. So let's take a look at the sign of Sagittarius. Okay, so now for Sagittarius rising, you guys are going to have Venus in your 2nd house for 4 months' time. So Venus is a financial planet and a benefic planet, and of course she's going to be spending a lot of time in one of your financial houses. So that does become quite good, because even though Venus is going retrograde here, it can bring you help, benefits, and support coming through this area of life. So what is the second house? This is the house of finances. It's personal finances. This is the house of, this is the house the ascendant sits on. So it's all those things that we need to survive, or those things that we need to support ourselves. It's the house of the intake of things, whether into our possession or also into our physical body, especially through the mouth and things like that. So those types of, habits and things like that. This is a house that is connected with the lower half of the face as well. It's a house that is connected to early family life and some of those foundational things. It's a house of history and archives of things or of information. All of those can be seen through the second house. And it's also self-worth, self-esteem, how we spend, save, invest, and earn. Looking at the second house and the second house ruler and things like that, we can see how easily we can hold on to money, how we treat our possessions, all of those things can be going on. So it's those things of worth or things of value, or what your own personal values are. So this is where you can be receiving some kind of help, benefit, or support. But again, we do have the retrograde energy here. So that can indicate some kind of, the retrogrades are all about the rewords. So revisiting something in this area of life, reinvesting in something connected to this area of life. So this Venus retrograde, it will show who or what we are reconnecting with. That can be people from your early family life or early family environment, or it can even be with old ways that you used to make money in some way, or really doing some reevaluation of what your own personal values are, or how it is that you're earning money. Are those in alignment with my value? Because Venus naturally rules the second house, so house of self-worth and self-esteem. So that's why making money has this very strong connection to how much money we're able to earn. If we don't feel worthy, if we don't feel deserving, it's very hard for us to create wealth or to receive things from others. So there can be a process of revision or reevaluation around your values, and are those in alignment with what it is I'm doing for work, or with how much I'm able to receive. So there can be a big process of transformation going on there, especially with that Venus Pluto conjunction, which can also bring up some kind of power struggles, control issues connected to possessions, resources, what's mine, what's yours, connected to investments and things like that as well. In another way, that can talk about earning through some of those plutonic things. So through insurances, taxes, loans, inheritances, through joint assets, through joint resources. But there is a potential for, a crisis to be initiated, or a power struggle that causes those contracts, agreements, and negotiations of some kind to be reworked or revised, or boundaries need to be, kind of set up there. So even if it's with personal finance, this would be an amazing time to change the way you spend, change the way you invest or earn, all of those things. Maybe creating boundaries for yourself with like spending limits, or taking a budgeting course, or learning something, doing like deeper research and deep investigation into finances. So maybe you want to start investing in something. So you start during the retrograde period, figuring out, how do I increase my money? How do I increase my income? What else can I look at? What else can I try to, kind of invest in? This can also add a lot of creativity to the way that you're making money, earning money through Venusian things. So if you're in Venusian types of fields, this becomes quite good, or fields of art or beauty, design, or transformation of any of those things, or in fields of finance, this can also be quite good. And this can cause a financial crisis of some kind, or again, power struggle over money that caused you to do a big revision in this area of life. But that pressure and that testing and that crisis in this area of life can again forge this diamond here that gives you something very beautiful, very long lasting through that hard effort being done. This can even give financial delays to a certain extent. So, finances, or receiving something from another, or maybe an investment that you've made isn't paying back as fast as you thought it would, or something. So again, there could be some kind of renegotiating or boundaries that need to be created with finances in some way. This is also an area of life where you may need to take your power back from something or someone. So is that connected to an early family life type of experience, or is that connected to self-worth and self-esteem for you? So, it can even indicate some form of, crisis coming in with self-worth or self-esteem, where those things are really looked at. And then as a result of you reevaluating those things, it actually increases your earning potential in the long run, because you're like, I don't deserve to be treated this way. This is what I'm worth. This is what, you know, my values are, I know all these things, so I'm going to charge this much. So that can also happen. So for example, um, you know, like I know this one person who's got this very weak energy in her second house, and she's an amazing life coach. And I use this example quite often. She's a really amazing life coach, but when it comes time for her to accept money for her services and things like that, she often gives them away for free, or says, okay, well, I'm just still practicing, I'm not quite there yet, and you know, things like that, or gives people way too amazing of a deal. So she gives a lot of her time and resources, but you know, not receiving that back in return through those tangible material types of you know, things. In another way, you know, I know another guy who's got maybe too powerful of a second house, but he's also a life coach, and he charges $500 an hour. He knows his worth, he knows his value. He refuses to work with anybody who doesn't see the same value in what it is that he does. And he has many repeat clients. He's very, very successful because of this like immovable boundary that he has around his values and what his services are worth. So there can also be like themes or developments, revisions going on with things connected there. Then you've also got your 11th house lord spending a lot of time in your second house. So you might be building something, creating something that's connected to making money, but maybe it's something that's been a long-term goal of yours. This is the 11th house, long-term goals, gains, wishes, and desires. So trying to put efforts towards materializing those things, or reinventing, you know, those things in a way that, you know, can bring you financial gains. Or maybe you make important financial collaborations with others, with like-minded people, or with groups, or within organizations that you're a part of, to achieve some kind of common goal that can give financial rewards, or maybe something that you is just very strongly connected to your values. So that can also come in. But with the Pluto transit, that can also give a big transformation within friend groups, or indicate that a friend of yours may be going through a powerful transformation of their own, or people that you used to associate with because you guys were like-minded. Maybe there's some kind of crisis there, power struggle there, and you realize, you know, that's not the kind of group that I want to be a part of anymore, something like that. It can give power struggles on, you know, like social media, things with mass communication, but also you can be investing in something connected to that area of life, and developing something, creating something there in a powerful way, maybe with the intention of a financial result or something. So that can even be, say you're like a makeup artist or something, and you decide, I'm gonna, you know, start doing these TikTok videos, and so you create all this content and things like that, and then, you know, maybe that starts to boost your online store or something like that, or boost your you know, income in some way. Or maybe you make important, you know, collaborations that somehow are connected to increasing your income as well, or your worth, or your value in some way. Then you've also got the 6th house lord spending 4 months in the 2nd house. So this is also a really amazing time for powerful transformations connected to lifestyle, or to your daily routine. This can give a crisis though in with like employees, or within the kind of work that you're doing, and that might even affect your finances. So again, that can be kind of this crisis point where you revive or revisit an old goal or dream that you had. Let's say that could be one manifestation, or where you create powerful transformations with your health or diet, or what it is that you're putting into your body, and things like that as well. That can come up. Or earning through somehow, or finding a lot of value or pleasure in you know, investing in things connected to the 6th house. So being of, you know, service to others and things like that, or helping others through a difficult or imbalanced situation, those types of things, helping others resolve, you know, debt, or even resolving your own debt, like getting very structured and creating this plan, having this step-by-step kind of goal and things like that. So fixing or correcting a problem in this area of life as well. So with how you spend, save, invest, and earn, do be aware of any, again, conflict over finances or within relationships. That can also be connected with that energy. Okay. Also, that can indicate joining kind of forces with a coworker, another person, or again, this can talk about some kind of conflict. This is also the house of like litigation and things like that. So there can even be some sort of struggle over resources that's going on in this time, or big kind of shift in work relationships that can be going on, or it can indicate even that coworker can be going through some kind of crisis or upheaval or something like that, or something that you do on a regular basis, you know, something really shifts or transforms there. Okay, so now let's take a look at Capricorn rising. Okay, so now for Capricorn rising, of course, this Venus is going to be remaining in your first house for about 4 months. So that becomes really great. So Venus is this benefic planet in the first house. You know, even though Venus is going retrograde here, and there might be some things that need to be reworked, revised, revisited, or reconnected with in terms of what Venus represents in the areas of life that it rules, you know, these things are definitely being brought into your reality or brought in back up to your attention in some way. But you can receive a lot of benefit, a lot of support, and even a lot of, you know, enjoyment and pleasure from this transit. And Venus's transits, you know, it can kind of beautify or bring benefit or help or support to this area of life. And this is the house of you. So the first house, this is you, this is your physical body, it's your appearance, it's your approach to life, it's the mask you show the world as well. It has something to do with your life path and life path direction as well. And Venus also rules your 5th house and your 10th house as well. So the affairs of these houses become, you know, quite activated in your awareness. So you can have important developments or experiences in these areas of life, as well as, you know, this is the ruler of these houses being brought to you. So, you know, Venus is the planet of love, of beauty, of money, of relationships, of aesthetics, of taste, of cooperation, balance, harmony, you know, aesthetic beauty, or receiving support or benefit from another. So there can be very important developments around all of these Venusian things. And the affairs of these houses, again, are being very strongly brought into your awareness or into your reality, because you know, when we look at transits from the first house, especially if it's your ascendant, you can check from your sun or moon as well. But when we're looking from the rising sign, this is talking about what's going on in physical reality. So those Venusian themes, or this Venusian energy, you know, comes into the house that is talking about the physical, tangible reality that we're experiencing. So that becomes quite good as well. And it can also give very strong manifestations connected to the areas of life in which Venus rules as well. So for example, I have Gemini rising, and when Venus went retrograde in the sign of Gemini, Venus also rules my 5th house as well. That did bring a relationship, and it brought children as well, because my fiance has, you know, children and things like that. And then that retrograde period is kind of reworking and revising things in my life, because now, you know, things are a little bit different, and so integrating that into my reality or into my experience, which the retrograde energy is about, an integration of those things. So that can also go on. So things related to Venus become very important in this time. And the first house is also how we initiate things and how we take action. So, you know, very strong manifestations connected to these 2 areas of life, especially through personal action and initiation. So this is your 10th house lord, and this is your 5th house lord. So the affairs of these houses also get very strongly activated. So the 10th house lord in the first house and the 5th house lord in the first house are actually both wealth combinations and combinations for visibility as well. So with the 10th house lord, they're very important developments or reworking, revising, relationships coming back up from the past connected to career, boss figures, authority figures, what it is that you do for work, the kind of legacy that you want to create, connected to public reputation and visibility within career. So there can be very important developments going on there. So that can talk about receiving a pay raise, that can talk about receiving a promotion, becoming more visible in your field of work, making changes to the structure of your business if you are someone in a leadership position, or, you know, getting promoted to a leadership position in some way. But that, you know, will cause a little bit of introspection, those changes needing to be reintegrated into reality in some way. This can also talk about, again, relationships from the past can come back there, or you can be revisiting or retaking some kind of action or steps with career. So maybe you go back to something that you used to really enjoy doing, or maybe you're rethinking your career, rethinking your values, your self-worth, your self-esteem, or maybe even your public image becomes important in some way. So, this is the house of physical appearance. Venus can beautify things. So it can show, somehow your appearance or the way you present yourself to the world can become, very important. And maybe that's something you really contemplate and make changes around those things, change your style or something like that, or how you're showing up in your work environment. Those things can definitely happen. And then with the fifth house lord in the first house, this is a very lucky house. This is the house, past life good karma as well. And it's a fun house. It's a house of fun and enjoyment and parties and entertainment and enjoyment as well. House of romance, house of dating, house of children, of creativity, creative projects, taking on center stage roles. So with the fifth house lord in the first house and the 10th house lord in the first house, definitely one of the manifestations can be receiving some kind of promotion where you have to take on a center stage role or something. Shifting something in your career to, do either creative problem solving at work or bringing creativity into your career, or again, aesthetics and beauty and things like that can somehow be playing an important role, or again, the way that you appear to others can somehow, increase in relevance in some way. That can also bring, manifestations connected to romance, connected to children and things like that, or just having enjoyable experiences in these areas of life as well. Whether that's connected to work life or, spending time with your children or doing things that you love, or going to, like reconnecting with old things you used to be interested in the past. So, going to shows that you enjoy, or going back to an old hobby you used to really like, or picking up an old talent that you had, and maybe that brings you a lot of joy. Maybe that somehow even influences your career in a positive way. Also, this is also the fifth house lord can be talking about risk taking, self-started business, or that creative self-expression. Those things can come into importance. But with the 10th house lord and the fifth house lord, you could be initiating something in these areas of life. So it can be a time period of initiating some kind of self-started business or creative project. Maybe that's for work, or maybe that's on a personal level and things like that. So that retrograde period can be about reworking, revising, redesigning, all those things within those realms as well. So that can definitely come in. It can indicate definitely that romantic partners from the past can be coming back, because this is showing who or what you may be reconnecting with. So it can show, reconnecting with old romantic partners and things like that as well, can come back from the past, come back into your awareness for some kind of resolve, or to bring you some kind of, benefit, or to re-achieve some kind of balance going on there. So let's talk about the Venus-Pluto conjunction for you guys. So this also indicates, and by the way, this Venus transit will affect especially those with either their sun, moon, or rising between 11 and 25 degrees. All Capricorns will feel it, but those degrees will feel it the strongest, as they are going to be experiencing that retrograde energy. And then with this Pluto conjunction, that means that these areas of life can also go through powerful transformations. There can be even some form of crisis that becomes, initiated in some way, or some form of power struggle can appear where, this is also a conjunction where you may need to take your power back. And this is in the house of you. So you and your personality, your identity, your physical body. So you can go through very powerful transformations. Maybe that might be in an aesthetic way. Maybe that might be something connected to your body, or how you take care of your body, or something like that. Or even how you approach relationships as well, or how you approach those things represented by Venus, money, beauty, relationships, value, self-worth, self-esteem. And so those can all go through a very powerful transformation at this time. In terms of the fifth house lord connecting with Pluto, again, when Venus is retrograde, relationships within that time period can definitely be up for revision. There can be reconnecting that's going on there, but also reevaluation. If those things are, good in the long term, in the long run, if there's boundaries needed there. And with that Venus-Pluto conjunction, that can also show you know, some kind of crisis within romantic life, or some kind of, it can even be like an obsessive type of energy, or it can be like deep bonding with another very passionate type of romance and things like that that can manifest. But during the retrograde period, that's when we can start to see some issues kind of arise around those things that have to be worked through or resolved. So, you know, again, this can talk about going to relationship therapy. This can talk about reevaluating, you know, a romantic relationship in your life. Is that something that's going to be good in the long term as well? Reevaluating, you know, this person's behavior, something like that can be going on. Again, that can be also an indicator of potentially power struggles within your own creative self-expression. So having to overcome fears or limitations, blockages, boundaries, or delays with those things connected to the fifth house, and being required to put a lot more hard work and effort there. And it can also give big transformations around, you know, this area of life that's connected with children. So, you know, it can talk about, you know, potentially getting pregnant, or it can talk about, you know, important developments in the life of a child, or in your relationship with your child, or something like that as well. Or this can talk about releasing, you know, trauma connected to, you know, romantic life, and also around, you know, self-expression as well. Again, facing some of those fears and getting to the bottom of any problems or insecurities and things like that, because Pluto is very invasive. It's very researching. So releasing any limiting like blockages around romance, around intimacy and things like that, or even around your desires, what you desire, what it is that you want to create. You could be working through those types of things in this time period. And then with the 10th house lord being conjunct Pluto, that can talk about power struggles, control issues within a career, vocation, or which with a authority figure or boss type of figure. It can talk about a renewal or revival going on within career. So that can even just talk about reviving an old creative idea and bringing that to career and having success with that through, you know, building that foundation with that creative idea and taking that time and that effort to really build that thing up is another way that that can play out. But, you know, the 5th and 10th house are both involved in this transit. So I did want to, you know, mention that. But this whole transit being in your first house means you could be taking a lot of action and initiating things that are connected with Venus, and manifesting those things connected with Venus. So whether this is building more financial support for yourself, whether this is beautifying your outlook on life, or your physical appearance, or your physical body, or starting to enjoy, you know, kind of like taking care of those things, you know. But again, that Pluto conjunction can talk about some kind of crisis, initiating this change where you go back and rework something in a very powerful way, and then you have this long lasting, you know, kind of result. So maybe you even enter like crisis within a romantic relationship. The extreme shadow side is it can be, you know, maybe there's like an affair or something. That's an extreme shadow side. But maybe that forms a crisis, and then you reevaluate, you know what, like I'm worth more than that. And then you totally, you know, kind of transform your appearance, and you get your confidence back and things like that. And then you know, skyrocket in your career, whatever it is. It can be something that, you know, some kind of crisis that is the onset of, you know, a bunch of changes that you're making and efforts that you're putting into in order to be able to achieve something as well. So that can come in. Okay, so let's move on to Aquarius rising. Okay, so for Aquarius, sun, moon, or rising, you guys are having Venus transit your 12th house for 4 months and go retrograde here. It's going to make those connections with Pluto here. So the 12th house, you know, this is a house of endings and completions, which is something I did want to point out, because the sign Saturn, Capricorn, which is Saturn ruled, you know, likes to downsize things, compartmentalize things, teach us maturity, teach us responsibility, get rid of what's no longer needed. And so that could be in connection with a sort, like a way that you're earning money. That could be connected with a relationship. That can be connected with things you previously derived pleasure from, which 12th house is also hidden vices and things like that. And then with these conjunctions with Pluto, that can talk about a big transformation going on with those things, or an elimination process, because this is also the house of losses and dissolvement of things. That doesn't necessarily have to be negative, by the way, because the 12th house, as a planet, cycles around the zodiac, and as it goes through your 12th house, it can talk about an ending of a road with a certain project or situation, or making room for the brand new beginnings that are coming in terms of this planet when Venus will enter your first house. So it's like a new cycle for Venus when she moves into the first house. So things that are, removed in this time, or released in this time, or let go of in this time, it may be needed to release those things, even if it's initiated by some kind of crisis with that conjunction with Pluto, or if it's, there's some kind of power struggle there, or there's something, shady going on behind the scenes that somehow gets revealed. It's the house of releasing and letting go. So it is likely that maybe some of those things are no longer meant to be there, because it's the energy of making way for this powerful new beginning of some kind when Venus moves into your first house. This is also, the house where you can derive a lot of pleasure and enjoyment from, as well as doing that reworking and revising. So if you're doing any kind of behind the scenes types of projects, this is also the house of, places of isolation or confinement, hospitals, jails, asylums, retreats, which includes, foreign travel and things like that. It's those things done behind the scenes. So you could be actually, creating something very powerfully there in some way. There can be, on the extreme shadow side, for very few, people, it can talk about some kind of, crisis or something like that. Let's say, when Pluto conjuncts Venus, then you have this crisis with maybe this addiction you have or something like that, and something negative happens and you end up in the hospital, and then maybe you end up going to this retreat or this rehab or something, and then you go through that process of revision of what it is that you enjoy and things like that, and work through those addictions or something so they can be released. So it's a crisis that can be initiated, but it can lead to a very positive result that can be very long lasting as well. And then, this is still in the sign of Capricorn, so you can become more committed, responsible, mature in this area of life. So it can even talk about taking on responsibility within, certain relationships. For someone who's victimized, someone who, needs care, needs compassion in some way, or being, actively involved in charity and things like that as well. That's one of the more positive manifestations, building something there. This is also a very creative house. It's, the house of being able to connect to something higher than yourself. So things, created in this time might have this connection to these outerworldly realms or beings, or being able to, when you because it's a house of escapism. So those healthy forms of escapism are things like music or things like art, where you just totally zone out and lose track of time. And that is, when you're more fully connected to this, you could be more connected to something kind of higher than yourself. This divine inspiration can come, and it can give a creative expression with this as well. This is also, the house of isolation. So it can just show enjoying spending a lot of time alone in isolation. Maybe with that Pluto transit, maybe you are getting rid of any kind of self-undoing behavior, doing deep research and deep investigation around, losses connected to relationships in the past, and doing that healing there. Maybe you start going to see a therapist, because the 12th house can be connected to those professions that require confidentiality as well, where you're dealing with the secret or hidden private information of others. It can indicate having like a secret source of wealth or way that you're earning money as well. Maybe you're developing something there. So that can also go on, or maybe there's some kind of crisis there that causes some form of consequence that ends up having a positive result, or putting you on a different path or in a different direction in some way. Or, just enjoying spending a lot of time, alone, doing, your tarot cards, or meditating, or doing yoga, connecting with your higher self. Or, this is also dream life and fantasy and illusion. And actually the 12th house, creating those things in isolation. So people with a strong 12th house energy are sometimes like photographers, creating this illusion, or people who are in like video game design and things like that as well. It's something that helps you to escape physical reality. So authors are seen with a strong 12th house energy and things like that as well. So it can be that way, or it can be kind of enjoying some of those more hidden types of, vices and things like that. But you may need to kind of, because Venus again goes into the underworld 3 times. So this can even talk about, again, through dreams and things like that. It can indicate, you might be more, susceptible to receiving some kind of inspiration or messages and things like that, or even visiting people that have passed on. Past life connections can appear, all of those. So even say you go see a psychic or something and you get in touch with someone who's passed on or something like that, those types of things can also, happen. Very spiritual placement. But with that connection with Pluto, that's very, you can receive very powerful psychic downloads of information. At the same time, it can give kind of like nightmares or very, very dark and intense types of dreams, because again, this is the unconscious mind. And when we dream, part of, healing or processing what happens in our daily experience is connected to our dream life and things like that. So it can even show on a subconscious level without you even being aware of it. Some of these relationship issues or money issues or something can be resolved or transformed through the invisible worlds or through the dream world or something like that as well. Then this also, the 9th house lord and the 4th house lord that are going to make a conjunction with Pluto and are also influenced by this retrograde energy. And, in a way, for me, there's a little bit of energy around like spiritual awakening, because the 9th house lord is also conjunct Pluto in the 12th house. So that can be happening. There with the 4th house lord here as well, and the 12th house being involved, the 4th, 5th, 8th, and 12th house all have sort of a connection to pregnancy as well. So there can be something kind of going on there. The 4th house is giving birth to something, but it can also be the creation of something. So again, creating something behind the scenes. It doesn't necessarily have to mean you get pregnant. Maybe it's the birth of an idea that you have or something like that. Also, there you can have power struggles, control issues, or face fears with things connected to the 9th house or the 4th house. So it can indicate some form of, maybe there's some kind of crisis within home life or within family and things like that, where those relationships then need to be, reworked or revised or revisited, or it can bring back things from the past. So maybe, you reconnect in some way again with, family members. So in the 12th house, maybe that's a family member that's already passed on or something like that. So that can come in, or this can talk about, the dissolvement of, some kind of trauma around family or around early life, around family life and things like that as well. Or spending a lot of time in isolation, kind of in your home environment, doing some of the transformation work or doing, creative projects and things like that. With the 9th house lord there, you can also be creating something behind the scenes that can be connected to education in a more shadowy with this connection with Pluto. Power struggles, control issues can arise with teachers, with father figures, crisis with those things. But also you could be transforming your belief system in a very powerful way, because the 9th house is connected with those, or rediscovering, your inspiration. And again, maybe that happens through some form of, crisis, or, some sort of sudden reversal or upheaval that happens. So that can also come in. Or maybe you're working very hard on something connected to the 9th house. So something you want to publish, something that you're creating behind the scenes. Maybe you're facing, some kind of fears or something like that in connection with travel, or in connection with, publishing things, stuff like that as well. In a shadow way, this is the 12th house though. So it's hidden things done behind your back, and hidden enemies and things like that. So be aware of that energy, because even with Pluto Venus conjunction, that's a very misleading, it can be like an illusion of some kind that's going on within relationships, or secret or hidden activity. Or again, it can be, doing releasing or healing around, those types of things as well. Okay. Okay, so let's move on to Pisces, Sun, Moon, or Rising. Okay, so finally, Pisces, Sun, Moon, or Rising, you guys are going to have Venus retrograding through your 11th house and spending 4 months in your 11th house. So what is the 11th house? This is the house of goals, gains, desires, wishes, and Venus is a very benefic planet. So despite that retrograde energy, Venus is still going to bring help and benefit and support to this area of life. This is also an energy that can boost your creativity in this area of life. So the way that you're earning money, you can become more creative and reevaluate, some of the aesthetics of how you're earning money and things like that, or the way you're presenting those things to the world through mass communication, all of those as well. This can also indicate reevaluating relationships in this area of life, or that things from the past can come back from this area of life as well. So you might be reconnecting with something here. So is that a cause that you used to, really love and really care about that you get back in touch with? Or is it a friend that, you reconnect with in some way? Is it, people from, this is even the house of older sibling as well. So maybe there's, important developments going on around that relationship that you have with an older sibling. So all of those can happen. This is also, though, for financial things, you could be doing a huge revision of, your goals and dreams and wishes and desires. Capricorn is a sign of structure. So you can really be kind of compartmentalizing things, getting very serious, practicing a higher level of maturity or responsibility with your goals, and really kind of defining the step-by-step process of how do I reach that mountaintop? So how do I reach the peak of achievement with this thing? And maybe that's going to require you to go back to the drawing board and take a look at what needs to be done step by step in a very practical and realistic way. So there can also be this redevelopment or even revisiting of, goals or dreams that you used to have and things like that as well. So that can definitely be going on with this Venus retrograde. This can also talk about creating new sources of income in some way, or also increasing your social visibility or influence through, again, things like mass communications, or figuring out how to make money through the 11th house, which can be talking about through widening your influence, through making collaborations, through setting up a website, or, through doing, kind of more mass advertising, maybe using social media, any of those types of things. So there could be a big redevelopment of any of those things connected to the 11th house with that retrograde energy, and you can still receive benefits and help and support here as well. Now, this is also, let's talk about the Pluto-Venus conjunction, because this area of life can also be where you encounter some form of power struggle, some kind of crisis situation, or some kind of situation where you may need to take your power back in some way. So that can be, this can talk about some kind of crisis that's initiated that causes kind of this onset of this revision process. So say, for example, and Venus is this planet of self-worth and self-esteem and things like that. So say, for example, you enter this crisis or power struggle with a friend where you have some kind of, negative experience going on there, or they're going through some kind of crisis or upheaval or something like that. And maybe that causes you to reconsider things in your own life and make some powerful changes and developments and things like that, either around the relationship or how that relates to your life personally as well. Or say, for example, you get in a power struggle with, someone on a social media platform, and maybe they say really harsh, mean things to you about something that you have created and you put out there, and it causes, some of this negativity there, and then it causes you to kind of reflect and do that work around self-worth and self-esteem, realizing that nobody can take that away from you, nobody can define that for you, and then you kind of have this phoenix rising type of energy where you come back even more powerful and even more strong and things like that. But there can be this initial knocking down or crisis or power struggle that happens in this area of life as well. Or say, if it's an older sibling, maybe there's, again, some kind of power struggle or crisis going on there that causes you to reevaluate that relationship, and work may need to be, kind of done there and things like that as well. This is also where you could be reinvesting in something. So again, reinvesting in a goal that you used to have, reinvesting in, a friendship, or reinvesting, let's say, in, some kind of idea that you had to make money before, something like that, that can also come in. Or doing a lot of creation, maybe the retrograde period, you really want to be creating something that you are, releasing on this, big platform to the world kind of thing. But that, might even require, because of this Venus-Pluto conjunction, overcoming some form of fear, or, something like that before. And so you take those steps behind the scenes, kind of you retreat and really rework those things and polish this thing so you can have this amazing result as well. Okay, and then this is also your third house lord. That's going to be spending a lot of time in the 11th house. So this is a really amazing energy for creating, any kind of writing or speaking types of, projects. If you have, an opinion about something, if you have an idea about something, you want to kind of bring that out to the public in some way, or creative, projects with, skills and things like that, publishing those online somehow. So even, for example, say you make some kind of artwork or some kind of paintings or something and you put it on TikTok and then that goes viral and it boosts your income and it boosts your, social influence in some way. So those types of things can also, be going on, or maybe you set up a website for, your crafts or whatever it is that you're doing, or maybe you start like a blog or something like that. So your, the house of your ideas and your skills and even self-started business and things like that, you're very focused on networking those and getting those out there to the world, and maybe even forming collaborations within your business that boost your visibility or success or gainfulness in some way. But again, this is an area of life where you may encounter that kind of power struggle. So the third house is connected to self-talk and things like that. So you might have to maybe with this Pluto conjunction, maybe start doing deeper research and deep investigation around the way that you communicate with yourself. And is that empowering or is that disempowering? Because this is also like an aspect of empowerment and things like that. So something can go on there. Or maybe you publish something that you've worked on that's creative and, someone kind of smashes it and it causes you to go back and revise it and rework it. And then you end up with this much more beautiful, much more, solid type of product or result or service or whatever it is. So that can also come on, or doing some kind of big revision or revamping of, let's say, your website or your product or your business, restructuring those things, getting very serious and mature about those things to have some form of high achievement there. This is also your 8th house lord transiting your 11th house with that conjunction with Pluto. And I forgot to mention with the third house is also siblings or short distance travel, people within your local environment and things like that. So that can be a source of this onset of, crisis or power struggles and things like that. But it can also, with things connected to vehicles, because third house is like getting from point A to point B. For example, I know someone who's a Pisces rising and he has this business of window washing. And right now he's basically kind of reconsidering because the demand for work is really high. He needs to network and bring more people on. So he wants to start a fleet. So this might be the time period when he's really figuring out what that looks like and what he's going to pay people, what these vehicles are going to cost and that type of thing. So that can also be going on. Okay, this is also, the house of teaching, skills or writing, media, things like that. So it could be figuring out ways to kind of earn through those things, getting serious about those, putting your skills out there, seeing what you can do with them. That can also come in. In a shadow way, again, it can talk about, some kind of crisis or upheaval going on in the life of a sibling or within your local environment or with people in your local environment in some way. That causes, that onset for revision and changes being made, maybe even changes within contracts or agreements or the terms of a relationship in some way. Then you have the 8th house lord, which is Venus conjuncting Pluto 3 times in the 11th house. So the 8th house lord moving into the 11th house, this can talk about a death and rebirth process, as well as the Venus-Pluto conjunction, because Pluto carries that energy of the 8th house within friend groups, within your, fan base and things like that. So maybe you have this social media following and then you decide to bring these new ideas or these new opinions and things like that. And maybe you lose a bunch of followers, but then maybe you gain a bunch of new followers, but that the energy there has changed somehow. So you end up with like different kind of people following you or supporting you. So that could be something else that happens, or it can indicate, a friend or something like that can be going through very profound transformation within their life as well, or an older sibling might be going through a period of change or crisis or upheaval. This can also talk about healing relationships with these people though. And the 8th house, this is also talking about joint assets, joint resources, belongings, and possessions of others. And so this is also clients' money, going into the 11th house. So increased social visibility or making social connections can actually boost like your client base and like how much money they're able or willing to spend on your products or services. So that can become good. But again, there could be some kind of initial crisis where you revise something that can be going on. This can also indicate starting some kind of joint venture with a friend or in a collaborative type of effort in some way where you guys are both earning together. So that can also come in if you are looking for, earning, some kind of sponsorship or, because the 8th house, this is insurances, taxes, loans, inheritances, unearned wealth or sponsorship. And that ruler is spending a lot of time in the house of gains. So it can give you access to some of those things as well. Do be aware of developing those things during the retrograde time period though, because those, might not have so much longevity, or it can bring issues with that as well. Okay, so this is also the house of sex and intimacy. And so even with that Pluto conjunction going on there, it can even show, a friendship turn into kind of a love affair or into more of an intimate type of relationship or friends with benefits type of situation for some of you. Or, also this can be like deepening the bond with a certain friendship, bonding through some form of, crisis or upheaval or something like that as well. If you're in 8th house types of careers, this can definitely be a time period when you're really focused on earning through the 8th house as well. So that can come in. Okay, so I think that's everything. I'm going to end this video now because it has went quite a bit over time. So thank you guys all so much. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys soon. Have a great day.